Chapter 730. The large rat shrieked in pain and struggled violently. However, the tentacles that pierced into its body didn't show any signs of loosening. Instead, they dug deeper and deeper. After a few minutes, the large rat gradually stopped struggling. Its body was pierced by a few tentacles. The tentacles that had been white previously now started to turn red from where they pierced into the rat's body. The red color quickly spread to the top of the tentacles. It was like a patient receiving an intravenous drip, and the blood flowed back into the test tube. The mushroom was clearly sucking the blood of the large rat. Lin Xiao looked at the red tentacles. It didn't take long for the large rat to be sucked dry. She looked at her surroundings strangely. Since the large mushroom was sucking the blood of living creatures, what about corpses? The other mutated plants had more or less corpses and skeletons around them. However, there was nothing around the large mushroom. Just as Lin Xiao was curiously observing, she saw the mushroom's tentacles loosen and throw the dried-up rat corpse to its roots. Following that, the roots of the large mushroom began to tremble and split open. Then, the large mushroom pulled itself out of the ground. Looking at the few thick roots, there was a hole below. The hole immediately emitted the stench of rotting corpses and soil. Lin Xiao was speechless. Clearly, this was a mushroom that could walk. After the large mushroom pulled its roots out of the ground, it used the roots to wrap the rat into the smelly hole. Then, the large mushroom sat on the top of the hole again. The soil around its roots was pushed back from the bottom, quickly covering the tracks it had left behind when it ran out. This was a smart mushroom. Lin Xiao looked at the mushroom. It could even wipe away the traces after eating, staying in the same place and pretending to not move. It had also become a spirit. After the mushroom spirit had its fill, it happily buried the corpse of the mouse under its roots to use it as nourishment. However, it didn't know that its actions, which it thought no one had noticed, had already been seen by Lin Xiao, who was hiding on a nearby tree. Lin Xiao looked at the mushroom spirit quietly standing in the middle of the empty space. Just as she was about to jump down and attack it, some subtle movements came from the forest next to them, causing Lin Xiao to stop what he was doing. The reason why she stopped was that the thing that came this time couldn't be compared to the big rat from before. That was because the previous mice were bewitched, but this time they came with a strong killing intent. Clearly, this was a hunter, and not a prey that the mushroom spirit had lured over. An aura with a fierce killing intent approached from afar. It was silent and didn't move at all. The mushroom spirit didn't seem to realize that a killer was coming towards it. It was stretching its mushroom umbrella, looking very lazy and relaxed. Here it comes. Lin Xiao turned his head to look in the direction of the hunter. Soon, he saw a huge black figure crawling to the edge of the clearing. The mushroom spirit still wanted to open its mushroom umbrella, but in the next second, it suddenly froze. Then, in the blink of an eye, Lin Xiao suddenly jumped up, curled up his mushroom hair, and ran to the other side. It ran away, and he ran very fast. Lin Xiao only saw a shadow, and the guy disappeared into the forest. At the same time, the black shadow that was lurking just now also rushed out. It turned into a huge black shadow and chased in the direction that the mushroom spirit escaped. In the blink of an eye, Lin Xiao saw the two disappear in front of her. After being stunned for 2 seconds, Lin Xiao's figure also flashed, and she chased in the direction that the two had gone. Following the scent, she quickly caught up with the two strange fellows, one in front and one behind. Looking at the mushroom head that had shrunk its mushroom umbrella into a triangular shape, and its vertical body, there were 4 to 5 roots that were as thick as an adult's calf. But now, this mushroom spirit was swinging these thick roots like a gust of wind, and only a blurry shadow could be seen. Its running speed was also like a gust of wind. After following for a while, Lin Xiao was speechless to find that this strange mutated beast obviously couldn't outrun this mushroom spirit. Looking at the mutated beast that was running and panting, but still couldn't catch up, Lin Xiao silently raised a white flag for this guy in his heart. After following for a long distance, the distance between these two Logia-type mutated spiritual monsters was getting longer and longer. Seeing that the mushroom spirit had already run out of sight, the mutated beast behind it reluctantly stopped because it couldn't run anymore. At this moment, Lin Xiao suddenly pounced on this mutated beast from the tree. He waved his claws and slashed at the mutated beast's neck. Roar dash, the mutated beast that was originally panting from exhaustion, suddenly felt a huge sense of danger, but it couldn't react in time. Just as it was struggling to avoid Lin Xiao's attack, it was already too late. This was a huge black pig that had evolved into the appearance of a giant wild boar. The half-meter-long mane on its neck was thick and hard, its face was ferocious, and its teeth were exposed, shining with a sharp cold light. Its body was the size of a water buffalo, and its whole body was covered with black hair. But even so, this mutated pig's head was cut in half by Lin Xiao. Scarlet blood and brain matter splattered all over the ground. After quickly storing the mutated pig's corpse into her space, Lin Xiao continued to chase in the direction of the mushroom spirit's escape. The mushroom spirit was still running, and didn't stop just because the mutated wild boar didn't continue to chase after it. It was still running like a gust of wind in the forest, nimbly avoiding the obstacles of rocks and trees. Lin Xiao quickly skimmed from the top of the tree and quickly caught up. Just when the distance between her and the mushroom spirit was about 100 meters, she suddenly saw that the mushroom spirit's mushroom head seemed to twist backwards, and then its speed instantly increased by another level. Huh? Did it discover her? Lin Xiao thought curiously. Could it be that this mushroom spirit could even sense her when she was invisible? But why was it so slow to sense the mutated wild boar just now? Or could it be that it was within a certain distance from it? While thinking, she had no choice but to increase her speed to catch up. Although this mushroom spirit didn't know how to climb trees, it could still jump. It could step on the top of this tree, and then jump to a rock a few meters or even a dozen meters away, and then jump again, and then jump out again. In any case, apart from not being able to climb trees, this thing was running very happily on the ground. Nothing seemed to be able to stop it, until a river suddenly appeared in front of it. The river wasn't very wide, probably about 20 to 30 meters wide. But the mushroom spirit came to a sudden stop, and then turned 90 degrees, continuing to run along the riverbank. Chapter 731. Looking at the big mushroom that only left an afterimage, Lin Xiao realized that it could actually feel her existence. As long as she was within 100 meters of the big mushroom, she would notice that this guy seemed to have a particularly intense reaction. Lin Xiao couldn't get close to it. If that was the case, Lin Xiao's figure suddenly flashed. A few seconds later, she came out with a dog and a snake. Catch it. There's a running mushroom in front. You two flank it from the side. Don't let it run away. Lin Xiao's eyes flashed with interest. She released the two animals to chase the running mushroom. Whoa! The zombie dog barked excitedly and dashed out, although it didn't know what the mushroom Lin Xiao was talking about was. However, it could sense a moving mass of energy in the direction Lin Xiao was pointing at. With its intelligence, it immediately understood that Lin Xiao was referring to the moving mass of energy. The snake's idea was similar to Wang's. Therefore, the two of them dashed out quickly, leaving two small gusts of wind as they chased after the mushroom. Wang and the snake, who had leveled up to level 6 and had modified their bodies, were much faster than before. So, it didn't take long for the mushroom to realize that it was surrounded. When Lin Xiao appeared, she smiled. Behind her was the river, in front of her was Wang, and on both sides were Dahe and herself. Keep running. Don't forget that you're a mushroom. You're cheating to run so fast. Okay? Lin Xiao looked at the mushroom, which was standing on the riverbank with its legs buried in the soil. Obviously, this fellow was afraid of water. It had run all the way here because it didn't dare to get too close to the riverbank. Howl woof, howl woof. Wang excitedly swung his bald tail and roared at Big Mushroom as if he was about to pounce on him. Its eyes lit up as it grinned at the mushroom. This aura belongs to a plant. Why is it running? On the other side, Dahe wasn't as excited as Wang. Its calm snake face flicked its long and thin tongue at the mushroom from time to time. Occasionally, It shook the tip of its tail to show that it was curious about the running mushroom. Regardless of Lin Xiao's words or the ferocious zombie dog, Big Mushroom just stood there quietly without moving. If it wasn't for the fact that it was running after it and the strange way it was curled up into a ball, others might even think that this huge mushroom originally grew here. "Wolf, go and scratch its paws," Lin Xiao said to Awang. "Oh." Awang immediately let out a cry and pounced forward. He stretched out his two front paws and clawed at the mushroom head. When it sensed Awang's attack, Big Mushroom immediately shrunk its canopy even tighter. However, it didn't dodge Awang's claws. Ding! An ear-piercing sound of metal colliding rang out. The mushroom actually used the hard layer on top of it to block Awang's claws. Because Lin Xiao had said that he would only scratch twice, Awang didn't use too much strength. Therefore, these two claws did not leave any damage on the mushroom spirit. At this moment, the mushroom spirit's umbrella suddenly opened. A gust of energy gushed out from it and even scattered with colorful powder. The powder spread quickly in the air. Lin Xiao didn't care, and neither did Awang. However, Big Black quickly retreated, feeling a sense of danger. However, it was too late. It had sucked in some of the energy powder. Lin Xiao noticed Big Black's reaction and suddenly thought of how the big rat had been lured over. However, the big wild boar wasn't lured. Lin Xiao didn't know whether it was because of its level or its species. Just when she was distracted by Dahe, the mushroom spirit over there suddenly jumped up again, turned around, and flashed in the direction of Dahe, leaving only a shadow behind and running away. What's more, Dahe didn't react to its movements and let the mushroom spirit run away from it. Big Black! Lin Xiao knew something was wrong when she saw Big Black's expression. She quickly went to check the situation. At the same time, she shouted to Awang, "Woof, go after it." "Woof?" Awang looked at Big Black and then turned to look at Mushroom Spirit, who had already disappeared. It hesitated for a moment. Lin Xiao looked at Mushroom Spirit, who had disappeared again, and shouted to Awang, "Go quickly. Big Black won't die." "It was just lured." As she spoke, she stretched out her hand and put Big Black into the space forest. Then, she immediately turned around and chased after Mushroom Spirit. The Mushroom Spirit ran very fast. It was several times faster than before. Lin Xiao and Awang couldn't catch up with it. After chasing for more than 10 kilometers, they had chased it from the park by the lake to another mountain. As a plant mushroom, it was running all over the wilderness. Was it really okay? Lin Xiao was speechless. Awoo, awoo. Awang was also excited about the chase. As it ran, it screamed and made a series of noises. It was afraid that Mushroom Spirit didn't know its existence. It was obvious that it treated Mushroom Spirit as a toy. As it chased Mushroom Spirit all over the mountain, it caused quite a commotion. The birds in the forest were startled and flew away. Mutated beasts of lower levels were also scared and scurried around. Some high-level mutated beasts and mutated plants just watched from afar. They didn't go near or leave. While Lin Xiao was chasing Mushroom Spirit all over the mountain with the zombie dogs, the remaining survivors of Hades' base were about to enter the territory of Hangzhou City. This group of people was divided into two groups. One group had more metahumans, but their qualities didn't improve with the awakening of their abilities. Perhaps they were just ordinary people. These people didn't receive military training or special training. However, because they had awakened their abilities and gained strength, they felt that they were superior to others. To ordinary people who didn't have their abilities, they treated them as if they were ants. The other group was led by a few men who were originally soldiers. They used the cruel methods that were often used in the military to train ordinary people. As for the targets of their training, they were naturally the zombies that were everywhere along the way. Therefore, through the training, ordinary people dared to pick up various weapons to kill zombies. Their reaction speed gradually improved, and they survived tenaciously. As for those who were eliminated from the training, most of them died of virus infection after being scratched by zombies. As for these two groups of people, the leaders of the metahumans advocated giving up on these ordinary people. This way, it would save time and food along the way. However, on the side of the ordinary soldiers, They were very united in their opposition. If it wasn't for the fact that these soldiers were previously trained in various combat skills and stamina, they would be able to resist the zombies if they grouped together, allowing them to put in less effort. These metahumans had already split into two groups and left the ordinary people behind. Chapter 732. Boss, he can't hold on much longer. Among the two groups of people that came from the old Hell King's base, a man ran up to the leader and pointed to a person lying motionless in the corner. They were currently in a small town, and the place they were in was an ordinary two-story building. The upper floors were occupied by the ability users, and the first floor was left to the ordinary people. Then there's nothing we can do. They don't have any healing ability users, and we don't have any medicine here. The leader glanced at the direction he was pointing at, then turned his eyes away. It was unknown how many people had fallen sick already. The long journey and the cold weather. As long as one's body was weak, the illness would only worsen. Leader Wang Jian looked away and thought for a moment before turning back to look at the patient. Then he turned to the person beside him and said, "Why don't we stay here for 2 days? I'll bring some people to look for a pharmacy in this town. Let's see if there's anything we can use." They had just arrived in this town, so they hadn't searched the houses yet. They had originally planned to rest for a night before leaving, but after a night's rest, the patient's condition had worsened. Since there was a patient in front of them, they could only stay and look for medicine. The person beside Wang Jian looked at the patient and said hesitantly, "But with his current condition, I'm afraid he won't be able to wait for us to find the medicine." The patient's face was pale, his eyes were rolled back, his lips were blue, and his breathing was weak. Not to mention whether or not he would be able to find the medicine. Even if he did, it would be too late to save him. More importantly, they didn't even know if they would be able to find the medicine. How will we know if we don't try? No matter what, we can't give up on everyone, Wang Jian said with a serious expression. After that, he brought a few people with weapons and snuck out of the town, breaking through the layers of zombies to look for a pharmacy. In an unfamiliar place, no one knew where to find a pharmacy. They had to avoid the zombies' attacks while looking for a pharmacy. Just as Wang Jian and his men went out to look for medicine, the ability users upstairs discovered that Wang Jian and a few others had disappeared. Where's Wang Jian? The two men who came down from upstairs looked around a few times, and when they didn't see Wang Jian and the others, they immediately asked the others. Captain Wang brought some people out to look for medicine. One of the ordinary people replied cautiously. The two arcanists looked at each other and said nothing. He turned around and walked back upstairs. Wang Jian has left with his men, saying that they're going to look for medicine. Who knew what he was going to do? Perhaps they had already run away with their men. I don't think we should stay here any longer. The sooner we get to the new base, the sooner we can be at ease. After the two returned upstairs and finished talking to the other paranormals, they immediately thought of leaving this place. There were more than 1,000 people in this group, but the number of ability users was not many. All right, this place isn't too far from the new base anyway. We don't need them to block the zombies. They can only hold us back. That's right. Even if Wang Jian didn't leave, he would still be able to do so. In that case, we don't care anymore. Since he wants to protect these people, let him protect them. Let's go our way. We're all arcanists. As long as we reach the new base, we will definitely find something good to do. I agree. Then let's go down and see if Wang Jian and his men have really left. If he hasn't left, then there should still be some food left in their hands. We don't have any food left, and we won't be able to last until we reach the new base. Why don't we snatch their food? That's a good idea. I'll go and find out about their situation. Someone immediately responded. His eyes lit up as he quickly turned around and left. Thus, after searching for a few hours, Wang Jian and his men finally found some medicine that had not expired in a well-preserved pharmacy. However, due to the ferocity of the surrounding zombies, 2 of Wang Jian's men were bitten to death. When they returned, they saw the angry and despairing faces of the group. Captain Wang, Li Honglin and his men stole all our food. What should we do? The moment they saw Wang Jian and his men return, they immediately rushed up to him and cried. What? Wang Jian was shocked at first, but then he immediately became angry. They actually dared to do this. Those bastards, when we reach the new base, we will definitely not let them go. But we don't have any food left. There wasn't much left to begin with, and those bastards ran out of food to steal from us. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot with anger. Don't panic, calm down first. We're not far from the new base. Just endure a little longer, and we'll be able to reach it. Wang Jian shouted to everyone. He then asked them, our cars are still here. We just need to hurry. We'll reach the new base very soon. Right now, there was no other way. All the food they had on them was taken from Hell King's old base. It was also the last bit of food that could fill their stomachs. Originally, it was supposed to support more than 1,000 people along the way. However, those ability users ate and drank to their heart's content along the way, not knowing how to be frugal. They always got the majority of the food, leaving only a small portion for the ordinary people. Furthermore, the majority of the food was in the hands of the ability users. Only Wang Jian and his men were left to manage their own supplies. As for the others, their rations were distributed by the ability users. However much they were given, they could only eat. If they didn't have enough to eat, they wouldn't be able to compete with the ability users. After all, they were ability users. With a wave of their hand, they could take their lives. Furthermore, they couldn't harm those ability users. Now, because they couldn't bear to eat, they would rather starve and secretly save their rations. But now, those ability users had snatched it away. Everyone was filled with hatred, anger, and panic. Without the rations they had stored up, they were still starving, enduring the cold wind. However, there was still a long way to go. They didn't know if they would be able to hold on by the time they reached the new base. So now that they had no rations, they could only endure. At least they still had water. That was because those ability users didn't snatch their water. Yes, we're not far from the new base. Although those scum took away our rations, we still have our water. When we reach the new base, we'll find them to take revenge. Someone quickly accepted this reality and used hatred as motivation. That's right. Even without food, we can still hold on until we reach the new base. Right now, the first thing we need to do is to stabilize the condition of those who are sick. Wang Jian nodded his head. As he said that, he got someone to give medicine to those who were sick to eat. Of course, the effects of eating medicine on an empty stomach wouldn't be much better. But at the very least, they could stabilize the condition and prevent it from worsening. As for the person who was on the verge of death before Wang Jian and his men went to look for medicine, he still hadn't breathed his last when Wang Jian and his men returned. After drinking the medicine, he remained unconscious. Chapter 733. On the other side, Lin Xiao and Wang were chasing after the mushroom spirit along the river. Even after running for so long, the mushroom spirit did not feel tired at all. It was still happily swinging its legs as it ran, leaving only an afterimage in its wake. A woof woof, a woof woof. Wang opened its mouth and flicked its tongue as it ran, chasing after the mushroom spirit. As they ran, they came to a small slope. There were no trees on the slope, but there was a lot of grass growing on it. Thus, Lin Xiao watched as the mushroom sprite swooshed up the hill. Then, a black shadow swooshed up the hill as well. Lin Xiao dashed forward, but she suddenly stopped. She saw Wang running in circles on the empty ground. It was barking nonstop around a small hole in the middle. Occasionally, it would pounce on the hole and use its claws to dig. However, the mushroom spirit was nowhere to be seen. Hey, where's the mushroom spirit? Lin Xiao ran to Wang's side and asked. A woof woof, a woof woof. Wang immediately sat beside the small hole. It raised its head and stuck out its tongue as it barked at Lin Xiao. Then, it turned its head and barked at the small hole. Lin Xiao was a little confused when she saw it. Then, she looked at the small hole hesitantly. The soil in the small hole was freshly dug. It seemed that someone had just dug it. It wasn't big, with a diameter of 1 meter. She raised her head and looked around. She realized that the mushroom spirit's energy aura had disappeared. It's gone? Lin Xiao sniffed and said blankly. A woof woof. However, Wang, who was next to her, didn't think so. After barking twice, it stuck out its butt and used its front claws to dig the hole. Lin Xiao was stunned when she saw what it was doing. Suddenly, she thought of something. Don't tell me it dug into the ground? Lin Xiao's expression changed after she said that. Then, she felt terrible. She looked at Ah Wang quietly and then at the small hole in the ground. What the hell? She had chased it for so long, but it had led her and Ah Wang to run for half a circle. After running, it dug into the ground. Lin Xiao stared at the pit with a depressed expression. There was a very clear feeling in his heart. That was, she had been tricked by a mushroom that could run. This guy actually had this kind of skill, but he didn't use it in the beginning. He just carried her and ran for such a long distance before suddenly burrowing into the ground and disappearing. Looking at how cheerfully he was running just now, it was obviously very happy. Lin Xiao's forehead was brimming with anger. All right. She was taken for a stroll by a plant in the mountains. She was walked by the plant. She was walked, woof. You stay here and guard for me. I don't believe it won't come out. Lin Xiao clenched his teeth and sneered. How dare you trick me? Once I catch you, I'll slice you into pieces and fry you. After saying that, she didn't immediately look for the mushroom spirit. Anyway, it had just burrowed into the ground, so it definitely wouldn't come out for a while. Lin Xiao turned around and entered the space, appearing in the woods. As soon as he came out, he saw Dahei twisting its body into a bow. Lin Xiao squatted on the tree speechlessly. Hey, tell me, how did you tie yourself into a bow? She looked down at Dahei, who was tied into a bow and kept twisting, and asked curiously. At this time, Dahei's body was twisted into a ball irregularly. Somehow, there was a knot in the middle, and the two halves of its body, one long and one short, were exposed. The whole thing looked like a huge black bow, but there was a snake head swaying in the middle. Lin Xiao looked at Dahei's eyes strangely. Without the usual coldness and fierceness, at this time, it was half confused and half intoxicated. Strange? What was there to be intoxicated about? However, it was obvious that he had been drugged. Lin Xiao looked at Dahei's expression and eyes with a strange expression, as well as its twisted body. It looked like it was obviously poisoned by that abominable mushroom spirit. But now, it seemed that the poison didn't do any harm to Dahei. It just made its consciousness enter a strange state. Thinking of the big mouse she saw at the beginning, it seemed to be dizzy and unknowingly ran to the mushroom spirit's territory, and then was eaten up. Looking at Dahei, who had twisted itself into a ball again, Lin Xiao could only sigh. She didn't know how long the toxicity of the mushroom would last. Of course, with Dahei's current physique and its level of mutation, Lin Xiao was not worried that it would have a bad reaction. But he couldn't just let it keep twisting its braids like this. Thinking of this, Lin Xiao turned and jumped down from the tree. Glancing at Dahei, who was still squinting and twisting, she turned and walked in the direction of the lake. By the way, she took a bucket to the lake and filled it with water. Then she brought it back and put it in the open space 2 or 3 meters away from Dahei. Although Dahei was twisting, it didn't move from its original position. How could she drink it like this? Standing in front of Dahei, Lin Xiao touched her chin and thought. Looking at its current appearance, it shouldn't take the initiative to drink water. Even if it was sent to its mouth, it wouldn't help. Then she could only use external force to force it down. But to do that, she had to fix the big snake's head and open its mouth. If she was not careful, she would be bitten. At this time, Dahei twisted its head left and right. Sometimes it was raised, and then it bent down and drilled under its body. Anyway, it didn't know what it was doing with its expression. Lin Xiao thought for a moment and turned out again. She shouted in the direction of several small buildings. Pit, Summer, you guys come here. As soon as she finished shouting, a few figures flashed out from the other side. Soon they appeared in front of her. Come in. Lin Xiao turned and led them into the woods. When they came to Dahei, she pointed to Dahei, who was still shaking its head left and right, and said, You guys go up and fix it. Open its mouth. I want to pour water into it. As she said this, she glanced at the bucket that was still placed next to it. Pit and the others looked at each other, although they didn't understand what was going on. But they followed Lin Xiao's words and went forward to hold the twisting Dahei down. Dahe was held down, but it was not angry. But its head was still shaking, and it couldn't stop. Summer stood next to Dahe and held its head. She looked at Dahe's snake tongue from time to time, with no expression. Pit stood on the other side and opened Dahe's mouth with his hand, showing 2 sharp teeth. Lin Xiao immediately picked up the bucket next to her, took 2 steps forward, and poured the water in the bucket into the snake's mouth. Chapter 734. After pouring the water into Big Black, Lin Xiao waved her hand to let everyone go. She handed the bucket to Pit and said, "Okay, you can all go out. Go do what you need to do." Everyone immediately let go of Big Black and walked out of the forest. After being poured into the water, Big Black immediately calmed down. Its head was on the ground, and its eyes were slightly closed. Lin Xiao was relieved to see it like this. She turned around and walked out of the space. Standing on the top of the hill, Awang was no longer at Pit's position. Lin Xiao glanced at it and found that it had run to the west about 2 kilometers away from here. She immediately flashed over there. When she arrived, she saw Awang digging the ground with its butt in the air. Lin Xiao knew that something was happening under the ground when she saw it like this. A dog's sensing ability was always stronger than a human's. Even if it had become a zombie, Awang's sensing ability was no worse than Lin Xiao's. Seeing that Awang couldn't find anything after digging for a long time, Lin Xiao's eyes flashed. She suddenly said to it, "Okay, stop digging. Come here, you go back into the space first." Woof! Awang immediately stopped digging and looked up at Lin Xiao with a puzzled face. A mouth full of dirt and 2 dirty paws were propped up in front of it. Lin Xiao waved for Awang to come over and threw it into the space. Then she hid her breath and quietly flashed into the forest next to her. Lin Xiao climbed to the top of a very tall tree in the forest and quietly sensed the breath changes around her. Lin Xiao was very patient, but she didn't expect that the mushroom spirit would be even more patient than her. After keeping watch for a full 2 hours, Lin Xiao finally saw a movement in one of the fields. Then something pushed out from underneath. The ground was getting higher and higher, and then he saw a mushroom head coming out. Poof! It seemed that the mushroom had confirmed that there was no danger around, so it suddenly came out of the ground. The big mushroom supported itself with its legs, turning left and right. Then it slowly walked back in the direction it came from. That's right, it was walking this time. Unlike the time when it was being chased, it ran like the wind, but now it was jumping. Lin Xiao quietly slid down from the tree and followed it silently. He slowly approached the huge mushroom. The mushroom was still swaying as it walked forward. It did not notice a transparent figure approaching it from behind. Just as Lin Xiao was about to close the distance between them to 100 meters, he tried his best to restrain his breath, shielding his mouth, nose, and ears. Previously, when she was less than 100 meters away, this guy would sense her. Lin Xiao could only be more careful, very careful. Thinking about it, Lin Xiao stopped 100 meters away from the mushroom spirit. This thing could burrow into the ground. If he didn't block the underground passage, he would still be able to escape. Lin Xiao's eyes flashed, and he entered the space again. He brought out a few Earth-type zombies and had them spread out in a circle to surround the mushroom spirit. When Lin Xiao whistled and gave the order, the Earth-type zombies instantly sealed off the ground. The mushroom spirit was startled by the sudden whistle and instinctively burrowed into the ground. However, when he drilled into it, he found that the ground was as hard as a rock. He couldn't drill down at all. Pata, because the roots originally wanted to drill into the ground, they were blocked by the hard ground below. Thus, the mushroom lost his balance and fell to the ground with a thud. But it quickly got back up, turned around, and ran. Since he couldn't drill into the ground, he could only escape on the surface. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Bang! But in the next second, he flew back. He had been kicked away. Keep running. Keep running. Lin Xiao blocked in front of him and kicked the big mushroom back. He walked out and stared at it with a grin. The mushroom spirit immediately stood still and didn't dare to move. The mushroom umbrella curled inwards, but his roots were still twisting slightly, trying to drill into the ground. But no matter how he drilled, he couldn't move the ground. He was at a loss. Why was the ground here so hard? But even if he was at a loss, the mushroom spirit still didn't give up on his roots. He kept trying to see if he could succeed. Lin Xiao released all of her aura to suppress it. She found that this guy just stood there motionless, as if he was afraid. However, the little movements of its roots indicated that it was obviously not really afraid. Instead, he was putting on an act. You're pretending. Keep pretending. Tell me, should I slice you up and use you to stir-fry meat? Or use you to make soup? Look, you've become a spirit. The soup you make will definitely taste good. Lin Xiao smiled and walked to the mushroom spirit's side and walked a circle around it. Lin Xiao didn't know if this mushroom spirit could understand her words because it didn't react to her words. But from this guy's previous actions, he could tell that his intelligence wasn't low. Looking at the mushroom spirit's obedient look, Lin Xiao's eyes flashed. She suddenly leaned over and slapped its branch. Pa! The mushroom spirit's body trembled when it was suddenly slapped on the head. It instantly moved a meter to the side. Under Lin Xiao's aura, it seemed to realize that it couldn't escape, so it didn't turn around and run. You're still running. Don't move. Lin Xiao narrowed her eyes and stared at it. She unhappily leaned next to the mushroom spirit and raised her hand to slap it again. Pa! The mushroom spirit moved to the side again. It wasn't far, still about a meter away. Lin Xiao looked at her palm and confirmed that the feeling this time was right. She turned her head and looked at the pole in the middle of the mushroom spirit that was as thick as a telephone pole. When her hand hit it, it felt like it was made of wood, and there was even a bit of elasticity inside. Run again. Pa! Lin Xiao went over and slapped its pole again. In the end, the mushroom spirit moved another meter to the side. This time, Lin Xiao saw its movements. This guy had already stretched out a root leg when she approached, waiting for her to hit it. It immediately took a step forward, which was a meter away. Stop right there. You could have escaped underground from the beginning, but you kept teasing us to chase you all over the mountain. You walked us around. Was it fun? Was it fun? You stupid mushroom. You're asking for a beating, right? See if I don't beat you to death. Pa pa pa. Lin Xiao angrily slapped the mushroom spirit's body as she cursed. It was like she was teaching a naughty child a lesson. She was so angry, but she couldn't bear to hit it. She had wanted to kill this mushroom spirit for a long time, but after being walked around for no reason, Lin Xiao changed her mind. This mushroom spirit dared to walk her. Then she would raise it. In the future, she would take it out for a walk every day for others to watch. With that thought, Lin Xiao suddenly threw out the vine, that little vine left behind, and wrapped it around the mushroom spirit's body. Chapter 735. After the mushroom spirit was entangled, it suddenly began to struggle on the spot. It seemed that the vines were very uncomfortable for it to be entangled. Lin Xiao grabbed the other end and watched it jump around leisurely. This mushroom spirit could spread poisonous powder and burrow underground. And it was very smart. If it was trained well, it would be very useful in the future. Because of this, Lin Xiao did not intend to dig out the energy core of this mushroom spirit. He pulled the mushroom spirit into the space by the vine rope and then threw it in the woods. When the mushroom spirit was thrown into a strange environment, it immediately seemed to be at a loss. At first, it stood in the same place blankly. After a few seconds, it began to turn its mushroom head left and right. From the looks of it, it was sizing up its surroundings. Lin Xiao took back the vine in his hand and saw the mushroom spirit's shadow flash and disappear. Lin Xiao still stood in the same place, waiting leisurely with her hands crossed over her chest. In less than 2 minutes, it ran out from the other side. When the mushroom spirit rushed out and saw Lin Xiao, it suddenly braked in the distance, turned around, and ran to the other side. At this moment, a gust of black wind suddenly rushed out from the other side and rushed in the direction of the mushroom spirit. Lin Xiao did not need to look to know that it was Dahe who had woken up. Obviously, Dahe had realized that it had just been hit by the mushroom spirit's trick, and now it rushed over angrily as soon as it saw it. The mushroom spirit wanted to burrow underground, but it could not pierce through the soil here. At most, it could bury all its roots, but it could not get its torso and umbrella leaves down. This made the mushroom spirit confused again, but others could not see it. It had to stretch its legs and run blindly. As a result, it ran to the terrible two-legged beast. It immediately turned around and ran to the other side without thinking. As it ran, a big insect suddenly caught up with it. If you like running so much, then run with Dahe. At this time, Lin Xiao suddenly appeared in the tree in front of the mushroom spirit, lowered her head, and said to it, and then disappeared. After Lin Xiao came out, she looked at her position. Then she rushed in the direction of Xie Dong and the others. After she came out, she stood on the side of the road and whistled. Xie Dong, Jing Yin, and Qiu Lily appeared around her after a while. How was it? What was that thing you were chasing all over the mountain? Did you catch it? Qiu Lily floated lightly on a small tree next to Lin Xiao and asked her curiously. A running mushroom, Lin Xiao said. Mushroom? Huh? Why is it a mushroom? Qiu Lily exclaimed in surprise. Xie Dong, Lu Tianyi, and the others also revealed strange expressions. What's normal in this apocalyptic world? Lin Xiao rolled his eyes at them. As soon as she said that, the others immediately felt that it was only natural. Lin Xiao threw the wild boar out and said, There's only one. It's not enough. Let's go find some food. I'm curious. What did you do to the mushroom that can run? Qiu Lily asked Lin Xiao curiously with her head tilted and her two long ponytails hanging down. Oh, I put it into the space. If you train it well, it might come in handy in the future, so I didn't kill it, Lin Xiao said. Is that so? You really have everything in your space. Mutated zombies, mutated beasts, and now a mutated plant. Qiu Lily laughed. Lin Xiao took out the energy core of the wild boar and began to skin it. This wild boar was only level 4, but it could chase after the mushroom spirit. It seemed like the mushroom spirit was playing with it, but the wild boar itself didn't know that. And the mushroom spirit was already level 6. After skinning it, Lin Xiao cut off one of its front hooves, and as he ate, he spread his perception far away. He wanted to see if there were any other energy bodies around, which meant mutated beasts or mutated plants. After a while, Lin Xiao pointed in another direction and said, There's something on that mountain over there. Its level isn't lower than the mushroom spirit. Nowadays, the mutated species, mutated plants, animals, zombies, etc., are evolving a bit faster. Right now, it has already encountered quite a few level 6 mutated plants and mutated beasts, and the zombies have already evolved to level 8. At the very least, it has already discovered Mo Yin, and there are quite a few level 7 zombies. There are also quite a few humans that have entered level 8. It feels like they've entered a new stage. And I also feel a faint energy aura over there. Qiu Lily nodded. When Lin Xiao and the others returned with all sorts of prey, not much time had passed. A group of zombies with human appearances skinned and ate the captured mutated animals. After eating, Lin Xiao led the team towards the mountain that she had pointed out to Qiu Lily. Actually, the mountain was quite far from where Lin Xiao was, at least 30 kilometers away. When Lin Xiao led the team to the mountain, they surrounded and killed a level 6 mutated goat. On the other side, a group of people had already arrived at the West Lake District, and they had entered the area where Lin Xiao's zombies were gathered. There were only a few dozen people in this group, and they were all level 2 and 3 metahumans. The one leading them was a level 3 fire metahuman, Li Honglin. Li Honglin looked ordinary, but his thoughts were complicated. His observation skills weren't strong, but he liked to care about things related to himself. He wasn't very sensitive to other things. Previously, when they were in the Hell King's base, the fastest to gather information was Wang Jian's men. And every time Li Honglin and the others paid attention to Wang Jian's movements, they would receive the information they wanted. Look, there are so many zombies in front. It's densely packed. The area is so big, it's blocking our way. If we want to go over, we can only go through this large zombie group. A man beside Li Honglin used binoculars to observe the situation in front of them. In the end, what he saw through the binoculars were all zombies. Zombies, zombies, zombies from left to right, it was all zombies. It was endless, and he couldn't see the end. How many is a lot? Give me a rough estimate. Li Honglin couldn't sense the number of zombies in front of them because they were just ordinary zombies. He could only ask the person beside him who was using binoculars. The person beside him directly passed the binoculars to him and said, "There are a lot of them. See for yourself." Li Honglin took the binoculars and compared them to his eyes, and in the end his eyes were filled with zombie heads. They were crowded together, densely packed. He moved the binoculars left and right, and his line of sight swayed, but he couldn't see where the edge of the zombie group was. That can't be Zombie City, right? Why are there so many zombies? Li Honglin was a little surprised. That's right, but if we take a detour now, we might have to take a very long detour. Moreover, we don't know where the zombies are, so we have to go around the edge. The person beside Li Honglin said. Chapter 736. What's wrong? What's wrong? At this time, a clear and gentle voice sounded from behind them. Li Honglin and Chun Hao turned around at the same time to see a young man with delicate features, shoulder-length hair, and a slightly pale complexion. "Lu Tong, it's very windy on the roof. It's very cold. Don't come up, your body can't take it." Seeing this handsome young man, Li Honglin and Chun Hao's eyes became a lot softer, and their tone was also a little worried. Lu Tong smiled and shook his head. His smile was obviously very weak, but there was a trace of stubbornness in it. It was easy to feel heartache, or to want to protect him. "I'm fine, this level of wind can't blow me down," he said, looking at Lu Tong's beautiful eyes and smiling. Li Honglin and Chun Hao looked at each other and didn't force him. "There are a lot of zombies in front of us we can't go through. We want to take a detour." Li Honglin turned around and pointed ahead. "A lot? But if we take a detour, it's still very far, and we don't even know if the next route is passable." Lu Tong didn't know the situation in front of him, but he didn't want to take another detour, because this detour might be another 10 to 20 kilometers away. "But the number of zombies in front of us, I estimate, with just the binoculars, it's almost 10,000. We don't know the actual number. If we get into a zombie city or cause a zombie wave, then we'll all be dead. If that happens, we're all doomed," Li Honglin said patiently. "If we knew there were so many zombies here, we wouldn't have left with that group of people. They'll be useful here, won't they?" Chun Hao said with a hint of regret in his voice. Lu Tong's handsome face looked at him with some doubt. Then he turned his head to Li Honglin and said, "Let me see." Li Honglin didn't say much and directly handed over the binoculars to him. Lu Tong walked 2 steps forward and started to look through the binoculars as well. The result was the same as what Li Honglin and the others saw. There were densely packed zombies in front of them. He looked a little surprised as he moved his sight left and right a few times. Why are there so many zombies here? It shouldn't be. This is the border between Shihu District and Uptown. The population shouldn't be this crowded. It's impossible for so many zombies to gather here. Lu Tong's expression darkened. He stared at the scene in front of him with a puzzled expression. He confirmed that his eyes were not playing tricks on him, and he really saw a large number of zombies blocking the road and streets 1 or 2 kilometers ahead. There are so many zombies gathered there must be a lot of high-level zombies. Not to mention that we can't deal with such a large number of ordinary zombies. If a level 4 or 5 high-level zombie appears, then we're all finished. So, I think we should take a detour. Li Honglin voiced out his thoughts. This time, Lu Tong didn't object immediately. He pondered in silence. In his heart, he really didn't want to go any further. He had already had enough of the frightening environment outside. He just wanted to join the new base as soon as possible. Only with the protection of the base's walls could he feel at ease. However, with their current strength, they really couldn't get through the situation. He couldn't guarantee that these people would still take care of him wholeheartedly in such a dangerous situation. Lu Tong was a spatial ability user. Right now, their entire team's resources were stored in his space. He was a spatial ability user. Just like other spatial ability users, his body didn't have any attack value, and his ability could only store things. However, in addition to this, Lu Tong's body was also weaker than ordinary people. His face was pale all day long, looking like he would be blown away by the wind. It made people worry that if they were not careful, this person would fall to the ground at any time. Right now, the number of zombies over there was huge, and the level of their ability users weren't high. They still couldn't fly over in the sky, so they could only sit in the car and drive over. If they didn't take a detour, then they might be pounced on and killed by the zombies before they could even get through. Moreover, the number was not an ordinary one. If it was only a few thousand or 10,000 zombies, they might be able to get through even if some of them died. However, what they saw was obviously not just that. However, taking a detour would take a long time, and a long journey would waste time and gas. Why don't we wait for the people behind us to come over? Then we can capture those people to lure the zombies away. That way, we can clear a path for us to pass through. Lu Tong suddenly suggested. Capture those people to lure the zombies away? How do we do that? Li Honglin's eyes lit up when he heard that he had a plan. Just capture a few living people and run with them. Let them use their scent to lure the zombies over, then lure them to the other side. Wouldn't that allow us to pass through? By the time the zombies are lured away, Wang Jin's group will be left with less people. Lu Tong smiled as he explained his plan to Lu Gan. Using living people as bait? That's possible. Li Honglin's eyes lit up even more when he heard this. He nodded his head in agreement. They had seen Long Yubai hang the captives from the Netherworld King's base on the walls, which attracted a large number of zombies to gather at the foot of the wall. That scene was like a group of ants smelling the scent of candy. According to Lu Tong's plan, they could capture a few living people and make them run in a specific direction. When the zombies behind them smelled the scent of the living people, they would immediately follow. This way, they would be able to lure the zombies away from the intersection they were planning to pass through. All right, then we'll wait for them to come up. They have a car, but they don't have any food. I think they will definitely rush forward to enter the new base as soon as possible. This way, we won't have to wait here for too long. Let's do that. Li Honglin immediately nodded his head. Of course, Chen Hao didn't have any objections and raised his hand in agreement. Thus, this group of people originally planned to get rid of the ordinary people who were like burdens. But now, they had to wait for them to arrive so that they could use these people as bait for the zombies. What they didn't know was that their tracks had already been discovered by the level 5 zombies that Lin Xiao had left behind. At this moment, they were relaying the news to Lin Xiao. Looks like it's the people from the Netherworld King's base. But why are there only a few dozen people? That's impossible. When we left, there were more than 2,000 of them. Moreover, I left all the resources in the base to them. Although Yang Jian and Long Yubai stole a lot of it, the plantation wasn't completely destroyed. There was still food there. So even if there were people who died of starvation or sickness, there shouldn't be only a few dozen left in such a short period of time, right? Lin Xiao looked at the level 5 zombie leader who had relayed the news and asked curiously. Chapter 737. That's not right. The information we received said that there were more than 1,000 people. Then these dozens of people should be the vanguard? But it doesn't seem like it. Or is there something going on with that group of people? Xiadong, bring your team to investigate the situation and see what's going on with them. Lin Xiao ordered Xiadong to lead a team to investigate the situation. Yes. Xiadong nodded, turned around, and left with Lin Xiao's subordinates. What? Is there a problem? Qiu Lily looked at her strangely and said, Wouldn't it have been better if those people had followed you directly? Now that it's been so long, they want to leave that place. Why don't they continue to stay there? There's not enough food. I want to see the plantation in Hell King's base the other day. 95% of it has been destroyed. The soil has been destroyed. There are very few mutants among these people, and some of them might have awakened later on. But it's hard to save the soil. Plus, it's so cold now that the plants won't grow. It's already not bad that they managed to hold on until now, Lin Xiao said. You already guessed that they would come to our side? Qiu Lily asked her strangely. Lin Xiao nodded. When she saw the situation of the old Hell King's base, she could already see what kind of life these people would live in the future. Also, she had a plan to deal with the Earth Dragon base at that time. After the Earth Dragon base was destroyed, there might be a few groups of people coming to join. And these people from Hell King's base were only the first group to join voluntarily. It's normal that they didn't believe us at that time. After all, you and I are strangers to them. Even with Duan Wan as an example, It's impossible for them to follow us without any information. Lin Xiao said. Qiu Lily looked at Lin Xiao's face and knew that she was talking about this face that was unfamiliar to those people. So even if Lin Xiao said she was Lin Xiao, they wouldn't believe her. So, you're actually giving them time to find out the truth? Waiting for them to find out the existence of our current base, then voluntarily join us? Qiu Lily understood Lin Xiao's thoughts. That's right. They didn't want to come back then, so we can't force them. So, it's better to let them figure out the situation themselves and then join us willingly. Lin Xiao nodded and smiled. Oh, in fact, you have already calculated all these. Qiu Lily looked at her with a look of realization. Sort of. Anyway, as long as they're willing to join our new base, I definitely won't reject them. No matter what, he is an old acquaintance of ours. Moreover, there will be other bases joining us in the future. It's about time for our base to expand. Lin Xiao's eyes lit up. With the destruction of the Earth Dragon base and Hidden Cloud City, there would definitely be a large number of survivors escaping, except for the Black Dragon base and the Ming tribe. Huaxia and Haiqing were the two major bases, but they had to pay to join. Therefore, all that was left was the new base next to Sea City. Since this new base could be built next to Sea City, it meant that this base had some kind of connection with Sea City's base. This kind of connection was actually a good direction. Otherwise, why would Sea City allow a new base to be built next to it? Therefore, under the restriction of conditions, the survivors who did not have much ability or could not take out too many precious items would naturally choose the new base. Other bases? Are you talking about the Earth Dragon base and Hidden Cloud City? Are you saying that you will accept them even if they come? Aren't you afraid of them fighting? Qiu Lily looked at Lin Xiao strangely and said, Fight? Let them fight, but not in my base. I don't care how they fight outside of the base, but in the new base they have to follow our rules. Moreover, I have already avenged them. The hatred in the hearts of the people from Hades' base has been reduced a little. Plus, with the new base, they can live in peace. Whatever hatred they have, they can put it aside for now. Lin Xiao looked at the direction of the base and said calmly, Oh! Qiu Lily nodded, not really understanding. All right, this is only the first batch. It's not time to worry yet. Let me fix their throats first. Lin Xiao looked at Lu Tianyi and Xin Yuzhen who were standing next to him. Oh, then I'll go see if there are any other mutants around. Qiu Lily said and immediately left. Lin Xiao said to Jing Yin, Ah Song, and Ah Chong, you guys wait here. If anyone comes, hide. Jing Yin and the other zombies, who still had obvious symptoms of zombies, immediately went into the bushes next to them and disappeared. Lin Xiao called Xin Yuzhen and Lu Tianyi over and pulled them into the space. After entering the space, Lu Tianyi and Xin Yuzhen saw a strange scene. A group of zombies, led by the 6 level 1 kings, surrounded the edge of the forest. They were all looking into the forest, not knowing what they were looking at. Lin Xiao knew what they were looking at because there were 3 mutants running in the forest. Dehei and Awang had been chasing the mushroom spirit for God knows how many laps. At this time, the bored zombies came over to watch and bet on who would stop first. These zombies had learned to bet. Okay. In fact, the intelligence of these 6 level 1 kings was almost the same as that of a normal person. It was just that they had lost some memories and they had forgotten the past. In Pitt's words, we just forgot the past, but we would still remember some common sense things from time to time. They are betting on who will stop first. Okay, you two, don't worry about them. Hurry up and get ready to repair your voices. Lu Tianyi, you are first. Take off your clothes. As Lin Xiao spoke, she walked toward the lake and used the black fog to cover her body. Then, she took off her clothes to the side. Lu Tianyi and Xin Yuzhen looked at each other, and Xin Yuzhen immediately understood and turned her back to the lake. They watched as Lin Xiao dived into the water with a cloud of black mist floating around him. Lu Tianyi started to take off his clothes, but he suddenly felt something and looked in the direction of the forest. Countless gazes turned back, leaving the back of their heads for him to see. Lu Tianyi, who was wearing his briefs, was speechless. He didn't know if he should say it. Fortunately, he was a man, although he didn't care about others seeing his body. However, the curious gazes of these zombie-like guys made his scalp tingle. At this time, the pressure in the lake began to weaken. Lu Tianyi turned back and went down in his briefs. He secretly decided to wear boxers in the future. Chapter 738. After the first attempt on Xiedong, Lu Tianyi and Xin Yuzhen's throats were healed smoothly. After the two were healed, Lu Tianyi was still a level 4 zombie. Xin Yuzhen didn't level up either and was still in between level 2 and 3. How is it? Let me hear it. Lin Xiao asked Lu Tianyi after putting on her clothes. It's not like it's a mouse. Lu Tianyi looked at her silently, then opened his mouth and tried to say 2 words. You are good. His voice was as rough as Xiedong's, but it was a little clearer than Xiedong's. There were some differences in their voices, but they were different from their original voices. Yes, it was a little hard to hear at first, but it's fine as long as you can speak. Lin Xiao nodded. She had asked Xiedong before and knew that although it was hard to hear, at least her throat didn't feel uncomfortable. Lu Tianyi pinched his throat uncomfortably. It was really hard to hear. Lin Xiao looked at Xin Yuzhen and said, "Let me hear your voice." Xin Yuzhen looked at Lin Xiao and opened her mouth. Miss Lu. Her voice was a little different from Lu Tianyi and Xiedong's. Although it was hoarse, it wasn't coarse but a little sharp. But Xin Yuzhen spoke very softly, so her voice wasn't that hard to hear. There was also a unique magnetism in it. Yes, not bad. It's a little better than his. Lin Xiao nodded and glanced at the two of them with satisfaction. Lu Tianyi, who was inexplicably despised, was speechless. Xin Yuzhen smiled, and a hint of joy flashed in her eyes. After all, it was better to be able to speak than to be mute. After all, being able to speak could better conceal their current identities. Let's go and see if the mushroom spirit is tired. Lin Xiao turned and walked towards the forest. Lu Tianyi and Xiedong were confused but also curious as they followed. A mushroom spirit that could bring their leader all over the mountain was also a strange mushroom. At the edge of the forest, the zombies were still watching. The three inside were still running around in circles, and none of them stopped. It's actually running in the forest and doesn't know it's coming out? Or is it doing it on purpose? Lin Xiao looked strangely at the mushroom spirit that was running happily in front and the zombie dog that was also chasing happily behind. Of course, Dahe had a very angry expression on its face. The three mutants moved like 3 gusts of wind. Everyone present was a zombie, so they relied on sensing the energy source to judge. If one were to look with their eyes, they would only be able to see a series of afterimages. Before Lin Xiao could stop the 3 beasts, he sensed Xiedong's aura returning from outside. You guys continue to play, as long as you have fun, Lin Xiao said to the 3 in the woods, then turned around and left the space with Lu Tianyi and Xin Yuzhen. Xiedong returned to his previous position alone and soon saw Lin Xiao appear in a flash. Those dozens of people are all Arcanists. They should have awakened not long ago, and the highest level is only level 3. Xiedong reported to Lin Xiao in a hoarse voice, "There are more than 1,000 ordinary people behind us. However, the dozens of metahumans in front of us seem to be divided into 2 factions with the ordinary people. They were about to reach our new base. Those metahumans didn't want to be burdened by a group of ordinary people, so they left first. However, when they reached the zombie gathering place, they were blocked. They didn't seem to want to take a detour. They are waiting for the ordinary people to come, then use the living people as bait to lure the zombies away. This method is very convenient, but it is somewhat vicious." Lin Xiao nodded and said expressionlessly, "In the post-apocalyptic world, who would care about the lives of others? Therefore, as long as it could be used, they would find a way to use it." Using living people as bait had long been a common occurrence. Continue to observe their situation, don't interfere. See who will be the winner in the end. Only then will they have the right to live. Lin Xiao didn't plan to help those people. Dozens of level 2 and 3 metahumans wanted to deal with more than 1,000 ordinary people, and these ordinary people were armed. It was hard to say who would win and who would lose in such a battle. Understood? Xiedong nodded and turned to leave again. Qiu Lily flew to Lin Xiao's side and looked at the leaving Xiedong without saying anything. Instead, she asked, "There is a level 5 mutant tree over there. Do you want to go?" Lin Xiao looked at the direction she pointed and nodded, Go. Why not? But before we go, catch a few sheep. Ah. Cho Lily didn't understand what she meant. These mutant sheep can be eaten. Catch some and put them in the space. There will be meat to eat in the future. Lin Xiao pointed at the mutant sheep on the mountaintop and said, this mountaintop was occupied by a group of mutant sheep, and there was a level 6 mutant sheep leading them. It had already been killed by Lin Xiao. Oh, that's easy. You go and touch them one by one. Then you can catch them all. Cho Lily finally understood. Yes, I didn't say you should go and catch them. You guys wait here. Lin Xiao glanced at her with a smile and said to Lu Tianyi and the other two before disappearing on the spot. Half an hour later, Lin Xiao came back, but on the other side of her space, there were dozens of black goats on the lawn. These mutant goats weren't as fierce as the mutant roe deer, but their strength wasn't any worse than the mutant roe deer. Looking at the lawn that originally only had their own kind, there was suddenly a bunch of mutant animals. The roe deer that Lin Xiao had kept as breeding immediately took the initiative to attack the goats. In the end, the goats outnumbered them by more than 10 times, and they were very united. Moreover, their strength wasn't bad either. 2 sharp horns pointed at the roe deer, and they retreated while howling in pain. Thus, after a fight, the 2 different species occupied the lawn on both sides. Lin Xiao only paid a little attention to their situation and discovered that although there was a fight, there were no casualties, so she didn't bother with them anymore. Thus, Lin Xiao headed in the direction of the mutant tree that Cho Lily had pointed out. On the other side, Lu Tong and the others waited for a few hours before Wang Jian's group finally arrived. They quickly found a place to hide and waited for Wang Jian's group to stop. Sure enough, when they were about to reach the area where the zombies were gathered, Wang Jian immediately ordered the convoy to stop. Wang Jian jumped down from the roof of the car, and with some bewilderment, he shouted to the people behind him, "Everyone stop and don't move, wait for my orders." Then he took out his gun and fired a few shots at the scattered zombies in the surroundings. Then he led a few people to a tall building on the side. While remaining vigilant against the zombies' attacks, they rushed up the building. After killing a few zombies in the stairway, they climbed to the top of the building that was more than 10 stories high. Wang Jian used his binoculars to look ahead, and his expression became serious. No wonder the number of zombies on this side of the road has decreased. So they are all gathered here? Chapter 739. Wang Jian's scalp went numb when he saw the horde of zombies crowding the streets and alleys. What should we do? Should we take a detour? A man beside Wang Jian asked. We definitely have to take a detour. With so many zombies, don't even talk about attacking us. If they all charge at us, we'll be crushed to death. Wang Jian said with a dark expression. That's the only way. But if we take a detour, we'll have to spend another night. Let's take a break for now. The man beside him sighed and said with a grim expression. Wang Jian nodded his head and turned around to leave. What he didn't know was that their actions had already been seen by Lu Tong and the others who were hiding nearby. We'll make our move when it's dark. Make sure to stay hidden. Lu Tong said to Li Honglin and the rest. Understood. Li Honglin nodded his head. If they wanted to capture someone, they couldn't just charge out and capture whoever they saw. Directly starting a fight wouldn't do them any good either. Furthermore, Wang Jian still had guns and ammunition with him. Thus, Li Honglin led his men to observe Wang Jian's group from afar. Fortunately, there weren't any zombies in the area, which made it easier for them to act. They watched as Wang Jian led his men to retreat and find a safe place to camp. Lu Tong and the rest were overjoyed. This was giving them a chance to kidnap people. That night, after the sky turned dark, Wang Jian arranged for the people on duty to be on guard and temporarily rested in a movie theater on the top floor of a shopping mall. They planned to leave this place the next day and take a detour to the new base. These people were all ordinary people. Their perception of their surroundings wasn't as sensitive as the zombies, and they weren't as sensitive as the ability users. Other than a few who had served in the army and had undergone special training, the rest were just ordinary people. Furthermore, these ordinary people didn't have much to do in the Netherworld King's base. They only had simple jobs to exchange for food and drinks. The place they lived in was also in the slums. There were several passageways outside the movie theater, and Wang Jin arranged for a few people to guard each one. The outermost passageway was tightly shut, and there were 4 people guarding it. They were leaning against the wall behind the door with their guns in their hands. It's so cold. I feel hungry and sleepy. I really want to find a warm place to sleep. One of the people muttered as he blew hot air into his hands. I just want to eat now. Give me a steaming roast chicken. I'm willing to die. Another man said with a face full of fantasy. He held his gun in front of his chest and crossed his arms. The others nodded in agreement. Suddenly, a sound came from outside the door. There's a situation. One of the 4 suddenly tensed up and immediately became vigilant. He put his ear to the door and listened. The others immediately became alert. What's that sound? Another person asked in a low voice. Chill. The one stuck to the door immediately put his finger in the middle, signaling the others to be quiet. However, when he listened to the sounds outside, it became quiet again. It was as if nothing had happened. After listening for a while, the man looked at his companions with a puzzled expression. Strange, there was indeed a sound just now, right? Why is it gone now? That's right, we all heard it. Isn't that right? The other one asked his 2 companions. The others nodded. Suddenly, one of them shivered. He rubbed his arms and said, Why do I feel colder and colder? Did I? It was already very cold. Are you hallucinating? The other person looked at him strangely. At this moment, they didn't notice that a layer of icy white passed through the gap under the door and froze their feet in the blink of an eye. Just when they felt it, they looked down curiously. Ice had already formed on their feet, and it quickly spread upwards. Before they could even scream, they were all frozen in an instant. Then there was a clicking sound from the door lock. Not long after, it was broken. A few figures quickly came in and dragged the ice sculptures out, leaving an empty doorway. After the ice sculptures were dragged out, someone immediately removed the ice from their bodies. The few people who were suddenly frozen and then unfrozen sucked in a deep breath of air. Only then did they react. When they saw the person in front of them clearly, they immediately struggled fiercely. It's you bastards! Bang! As soon as the man opened his mouth to curse, he was shot in the head. After the 4 people were quickly suppressed by the people around them, they were tied up. If you don't want to die, shut up. Li Honglin stared coldly at the 4 people and said, It had not been more than a minute since these people were frozen, so the suffocation had not reached the point of death. Li Honglin, you stole other people's food and left. Why did you come back now? The 4 people who were suppressed stared at Li Honglin angrily. You will soon know what we are going to do. Li Honglin smiled coldly, then turned around and left. Look after them. It's not enough. Continue to catch them. Li Honglin, let us go if you have the guts. Otherwise, our boss will definitely kill you. You bastards. Another person cursed angrily. Bang! As a result, a psychic next to him directly raised his foot and kicked the person's head. Shut the fuck up. What do you want? Hearing Li Honglin say that he wanted to catch more people, the other person clearly felt that something bad was going on. He immediately glared at the people around him and asked angrily, You will know when the time comes. All of you shut up. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. The person on the side of the psychic said coldly. Not long after, Li Honglin and a few other people came back with a few ordinary people. All of the ordinary people had their hands tied and were pushed to a corner to squat. On the other side, Wang Jin also received news of the missing people on duty. There's ice here. It's a psychic. Wang Jin brought his men and ran to the outermost exit to check. There were traces of ice on the ground. However, there were no traces of ice on the door. It was obvious that the ice had come through the gap below the door. Moreover, from the traces of ice, there were a few footprints that seemed to have been dragged away. These should be the people on duty here. The door was opened, but it was not damaged. This did not seem to be the work of zombies. If it were zombies, there should be traces of claw marks around the door. Wang Jin immediately determined that this was done by humans. Psychic? Could it be Li Honglin and the others? Didn't they leave first? The people on Li Honglin's side were shocked. Looks like they haven't left yet. Wang Jin's expression was solemn as he looked at the traces of ice under his feet. He was trying to guess what Li Honglin wanted to do by capturing these people. Chapter 740. After discovering that Li Honglin's group had captured the people on duty, Wang Jin immediately called everyone back into the theater. Why did those bastards capture our people? The others cursed angrily. Wang Jin furrowed his brows and said thoughtfully, "They walked a few hours earlier than us, but they didn't want to walk any further. It's obvious that they don't want to take the long way around. Does that mean that they want to pass through the zombies' encampment?" Then he suddenly thought of something and his face sank. Since they want to pass through the zombies' encampment, it's impossible for them to do so with their level 3 abilities. They captured some of our people. I think they want to use them as bait. As soon as he said that, everyone's face turned even uglier. What? Those bastards. They actually want to use such a method. Inhumane. They know that the human population is decreasing, but they still want to use living people as bait. What's the difference between them and those bastards from the Earth Dragon base? They're a bunch of bastards. That's right. Even if these people enter the new base, they will definitely not do anything good. Everyone became very agitated and started cursing. Their faces were filled with anger and disbelief. Not only did Li Honglin's group steal their food, but now they even want to use living people as bait to lure the zombies. This is too cruel. Scum. Then what do we do now? Do we go and save them? But we're just ordinary people. Just guns won't be enough to deal with those paranormals. Someone beside Wang Jin asked worriedly. Of course we have to save them, but we are not their match. We need to think of a way. Wang Jin frowned and his eyes darkened. Is there a way to avoid being discovered by the paranormals and then get close to them? Paranormals can sense the aura of others from a distance, but ordinary people like them can't. Even those who had undergone special training could only sense a radius of less than 10 meters around them. But paranormals are all long-range attackers. They don't even need to get close to 10 meters to be able to directly attack them. So in order to find traces of the other party, they can only use reconnaissance methods. I'll bring some people out to look for clues. All of you stay here and close the door. If they only wanted to capture some people to be used as bait, then they wouldn't have directly confronted us. Besides, if I'm not wrong, they've already retreated. Wang Jin wasn't worried that Li Honglin and the others would return. More than a dozen of them had been captured. If they were only used as bait, it would be more than enough. If it didn't work out in the end, they could only wait for their companions to be released as bait before saving them. At that time, as long as he paid attention to the movements of the zombies, he would know where they were moving. Wang Jin quickly led his men and left stealthily. Following the clues they had found earlier, they headed in the direction of Li Honglin's group. On the other side, when Li Honglin saw that Wang Jin and the rest had already issued their orders, he immediately led the dozen captives away. He walked towards another path towards the direction of the zombies. More than a dozen people were tied up with ropes, and their hands were chained to a minibus. It was unknown where this group of metahumans got their hands on a luxurious sleeper bus. In addition to the SUVs and off-road vehicles that they had previously driven, they also had a minibus. Li Honglin and the rest got closer and closer to the zombies. After sealing all the windows, they threw a captive out of the minibus. However, this captive was tied up, and the other end of the rope was tied to an off-road vehicle. Roar, roar. The zombies immediately became restless when they smelled the scent of a living person. Then, they all looked over. When they saw the living person thrown out of the minibus, they immediately rushed over in a frenzy. The ordinary person whose hands were tied up and thrown out of the minibus had already turned pale. He looked at the zombies running towards them in a strange posture. He was so scared that he frantically wriggled his hands, trying to break free. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break free. He could only watch helplessly as the horde of zombies got closer and closer. No! Help! Hurry and save me. I don't want to die. He looked in the direction of the zombies while screaming in panic. At this time, the off-road vehicle that was tied to him started to move, but it went in the opposite direction. Its speed wasn't fast as it dragged the person behind it in another direction. After subconsciously calling for help a few times, he found that the captive was useless and was dragged by the off-road vehicle by a rope. The horde of zombies behind immediately followed the captive and started to run. On the other side, another ordinary person was thrown out of the minibus with his hands tied. Then, the SUV dragged him in another direction. Soon, the horde of zombies immediately divided into two groups and chased after the two people who were dragged by the car. Roar, roar, roar. The zombies bared their teeth and looked very hungry as they stretched out their claws and rushed forward. The two people were so scared that they desperately ran forward, but it didn't take long before they began to run out of strength. Their footsteps were unstable as they ran disorderly and powerlessly. Fortunately, the horde of zombies behind them didn't run fast, so they couldn't catch up with the two ordinary people who were used as bait. Especially in the dark of the night, the two people who were used as bait were originally cold and hungry, and at this time, they were excessively afraid. Their expressions began to become abnormal as they were dragged behind the car. Soon, they became numb and swayed left and right. Li Honglin and the others continued to stay in the luxury bus, watching the surrounding zombies rush out in two waves. The direction they were going in soon began to appear. But they weren't in a hurry because the zombies in front of them were still running out. On the minibus, Chun Hao and his people were suppressing the ordinary people who were caught. They drove the minibus next to the two waves of bait. When these two people couldn't take it anymore, they would replace them and continue to run. Soon, the two waves of zombies were led to the scenic area of the West Lake District, which happened to be the direction where Lin Xiao and the others were staying. Xie Dong led his 5-person zombie squad and stood on the top of a tall building not far away, watching the horde of zombies below being divided into two waves and let out. His eyes became somewhat cold as he looked at Li Honglin and the others. If it wasn't for Lin Xiao's order to not interfere for the time being, Xie Dong would have definitely rushed down and twisted off the heads of those paranormals who thought they were superior. These people thought that after they awakened their abilities, their status rose to another level. They looked at ordinary people without abilities as if they were looking at cats and dogs, and they didn't care about the lives of ordinary people. In their eyes, the lives of these people were already not on the same level as theirs. It was as if they had the right to live, but these ordinary people didn't. So they didn't have any psychological pressure to use these ordinary people as bait to lure the zombies. Chapter 741. On the other side, Wang Jian immediately noticed the movements of the zombie horde. Over there! He immediately led his men towards the source of the zombie horde. Wang Jian did not dare to bring his men too close, and could only observe from afar with his night vision binoculars. Very quickly, he discovered that the zombie horde had been split into two groups, meaning that two people had been released as bait at the same time. After understanding the situation, Wang Jian discovered that there was another minibus at the very front. These 3 vehicles were leading the zombie horde away, but there were no other vehicles in sight. From the looks of it, this was just a small team, while the main force was hiding on the other side, waiting for all the zombies to be lured away before starting the operation. With so many zombies being lured away, it would definitely take some time. Furthermore, it was still unclear how many zombies there were. In the end, Wang Jian led his men to follow the minibus, while sending 2 other teams to block the 2 vehicles that were dragging the human bait. Boss, why are we the bait? That Li Honglin is obviously trying to lure us away so that he can pass through the zombie horde as quickly as possible. Then he's just going to ignore us? At this time, in the minibus, a man said to Chun Hao with a dissatisfied expression. Chun Hao's expression was also very gloomy. Originally, his strength was similar to Li Honglin's, and the combined strength of both sides was also about the same. This kind of operation did not require him to personally lead the team. He could have just gotten a few subordinates to do it. However, Li Honglin insisted that it would not go smoothly if it was someone else. He had to personally lead the team to do it. On what basis? Chun Hao and his men immediately objected. Both sides immediately started arguing, and a conflict almost broke out. But at this time, Lu Tong stood up and stood beside Li Honglin, agreeing with Li Honglin's idea. Chun Hao was immediately angered. Lu Tong was a spatial ability user and was in charge of all their food. Even if Chun Hao did not consider Lu Tong, he still had to consider the resources in his space. Although he could give up on the food, Lu Tong still had some information that could be used against him. That was why he had no choice but to act according to their wishes. If this operation succeeds, wait until we reach the new base. Then we'll properly settle the debt with them. Chun Hao said with a cold expression. Boss, why must we listen to Li Honglin? Can't we just give up and not do it? Let's just let them go first. We'll lure the zombies away. That won't do us any good, and we'll have to take a big detour to get back, the subordinate asked Chun Hao curiously. After saying that, he looked at the ordinary people who were tied up and thrown to the back of the car seat. He felt that they had done something strenuous and unrewarding. I know, but if we don't do as they say, there'll be trouble. Chun Hao's expression was particularly dark under the headlights. What kind of trouble? Chun Hao's subordinate looked at Chun Hao strangely. Chun Hao glanced at him, but didn't say anything. Of course, he wasn't going to tell these people that if he didn't do as Lu Tong said, he would definitely die. In that case, once he entered the Universal Base, he might be exposed for what he had done in the past. After all, in this new base, the status of the Lin family was still very high. If Lu Tong exposed this matter, then he wouldn't be able to stay in the all-life base anymore. Chun Hao really wanted to kill Lu Tong, but Lu Tong was very wary of him. Although Chun Hao had been looking for an opportunity to get rid of Lu Tong along the way, he hadn't been able to do so because Li Honglin was still protecting him. Don't ask so many questions, Chun Hao said to his subordinate. At this time, he still didn't know that Wang Jian was already watching him from afar. Moreover, he was using a long-range sniper rifle to aim at the wheels of the small bus. Apart from him, the other people around him were all armed with long-range sniper rifles as they stared at the wheels of the small bus. Meanwhile, another group of people had already stealthily positioned themselves a few hundred meters in front of the small bus. Fire! Wang Jian saw that the small bus had entered their firing range and immediately gave the order. Pew pew pew. A few silenced gunshots rang out. Clang, screech, a series of sudden breaking sounds rang out, and the small bus that Chun Hao was on suddenly buckled and shook violently. What happened? Chun Hao, who was almost thrown off his seat, immediately asked in a stern voice as he steadied himself. Boss, the wheels were blown off. The driver also had a dumbfounded look on his face as he turned around to look at Chun Hao. What? Chun Hao's face sank. Then he ordered, we can't stop here, continue driving. Turn to the side and avoid the zombies. Yes, sir. The driver didn't say anything else and continued to drive forward. However, driving a car that had blown off its wheels didn't feel so good anymore. Just at this time, another pew sound rang out. A bullet suddenly pierced through the glass window, directly hitting the driver in the chest. Ugh! The driver groaned. Then his body tilted to the side. His hands loosened from the steering wheel. The car that had lost control immediately lost its direction. Fortunately, Chun Hao noticed this in time and immediately rushed over to grab the steering wheel. Along, come and drive. He looked at the road in front of him and shouted as he controlled the direction of the car. Oh! Another subordinate immediately ran over, then dragged the driver's body out and sat in it himself. Chun Hao opened the door, pushed the body out, and then closed the door. Be careful, they have a long-range sniper rifle. Chun Hao immediately shouted as soon as the door was closed, his eyes scanning the surroundings. However, it was pitch black outside the car window, and because the enemy's position was too far away, Chun Hao couldn't sense their position at all. Chun Hao couldn't sense the enemy's position at all. On the other side of the building, Xiaodong looked in the direction of Wang Jian's group, then looked in Chun Hao's direction. His eyes flashed with surprise. Wang Jian's group was at least a kilometer away from Chun Hao's position. With such a long distance and poor visibility, it was still possible for them to hit the car's tires and driver. The marksmanship of Wang Jian's group was very impressive. At this moment, several gunshots rang out from the surroundings of the minibus. Then, another boom rang out, followed by a huge explosion. The people who were lying in ambush not too far away immediately took action after killing the driver in the minibus. Bullets and grenades had all been used up. They were just ordinary people, so they could only rely on these weapons. Fortunately, the level of these ability users wasn't high, otherwise these bullets and grenades wouldn't be of much use. Chun Hao, who was in the car, had just said that they had a long-range sniper rifle when he was blown up by a grenade. The entire minibus flipped over and rolled to the side, thick smoke rising from it. Chun Hao's group was stunned by the fall. By the time they came to their senses, they couldn't care less about the ordinary people. They immediately climbed out of the shattered window. As soon as they emerged, Chun Hao felt a sense of danger crawl up his back. He quickly ducked his head. Pooh! A bullet flew over his head and hit the other side of the minibus. Chapter 742. Chun Hao and his group of ability users were actually being suppressed. Because the enemy's position was quite far, Chun Hao could not sense their presence. However, the enemy's bullets could still be aimed at them. Retreat first, Chun Hao shouted as he climbed out of the minibus. Then, he turned around and ran into a building on the other side. It just so happened that he did not want to do this job in the first place. At this time, someone came out to stop him, so he just pushed the boat with the current. Soon, Chun Hao quickly led his men away from the overturned minibus. Not expecting Chun Hao to retreat so quickly, Wang Jian observed for a few seconds with some doubt. Then, he immediately got up and rushed down with his men. Let's go, they're retreating. Go save them. At this time, the group of people blocking the minibus had already rushed up. They surrounded the minibus and rescued the ordinary people who were tied up inside. Chun Hao retreated with his men. The people in the other two minibuses were only level 1 ability users. Although they were armed with guns, they were no match for Wang Jian and his men's firepower. Very quickly, they were turned into corpses. However, the two people dragged behind the minibus were already exhausted. Moreover, because the zombie horde was very close to them, it was very difficult to save them. Moreover, the minibus stopped as soon as the driver died, but the zombies behind did not stop. The people on Wang Jian's side immediately found a good position to fire at the zombies, temporarily stopping them from charging forward. Two of the more agile people rushed forward to untie the ropes and rescue the two people. Because the bullets would not be able to stop the zombies for long, saving the two people who were being used as bait had to be done quickly. Xiedong looked at them, then at the zombies that were rushing over. His figure suddenly flashed and landed in a position where Wang Jian and Chun Hao could not see him. He released his aura, and the aura of a level 1 zombie king immediately spread out. Chun Hao and Wang Jian immediately felt a dangerous aura around them. Even ordinary people like Wang Jian and his men could feel it, so it was obvious that Xiedong's aura was very strong. The reaction of the surrounding zombies was even more obvious. All of them stopped moving and stopped moving. They also stopped chasing the smell of living people, even if it was very close to them. Quick, let's go. Suddenly seeing the group of zombies stop, the few people who came to rescue immediately didn't care so much. He only wanted to save them as soon as possible, but he was still slightly happy in his heart. Seeing that Wang Jian and the others had all been rescued, Xiedong retracted his aura expressionlessly. Although Lin Xiao told him not to intervene, he didn't intervene. All he did was release his aura. It couldn't be considered as interfering. On the other side, Li Honglin and the others were watching the zombies being led away like a tide, but they couldn't see the end of it. Suddenly, he noticed that the zombies had stopped moving and were motionless. At the same time, Li Honglin and Lu Tong, who were rank 3 arcanists, immediately felt a sudden pressure. It was coming from the direction that Chun Hao and the others had left. This aura, Lu Tong frowned. Something seemed to flash past his mind, but he couldn't grasp it. Not good. It might be a high-level zombie. At this time, Li Honglin's expression changed. However, he did not appear to be flustered. There were so many zombies here, it was impossible for there to be no high-level zombies. Li Honglin had already thought of this. He thought that if they encountered high-level zombies, they would just have to avoid them. However, he didn't think about whether or not these high-level zombies would allow them to avoid them. Fortunately, they were in this zombie gathering place, and Lin Xiao was the one who brought them here. Moreover, all the high-level zombies were taken away. If it was another zombie city with so many zombies, there would definitely be some high-level zombies appearing. Li Honglin foolishly thought that as long as he sensed the high-level zombies from afar, then he would be able to avoid them. He and Chun Hao were ordinary people in the past, and they rarely went out to interact with zombies, not to mention dealing with high-level zombies. Lu Tong used to rely on his family, but when Long Yubai brought people to attack the Netherworld King's base, his family was killed. Therefore, he had never come into contact with zombies before. It was easy to understand things that had never come into contact with them before. Did Chun Hao meet them? Lu Tong asked with a hesitant expression. It's fine, we are all in the car. The car is sealed. The zombies can't smell us. Li Honglin turned his head and said to Lu Tong. Lu Tong looked outside the car window. Indeed, the smell in the car did not leak out. Therefore, when the zombies passed by the car, they didn't notice that there were people in the car. Realizing this, Lu Tong felt a little relieved. On the other side, after Wang Jian and the others had saved the people they needed to save, they hid in a building far away. However, they discovered that the zombie horde outside was still motionless. What happened to these zombies? It's like they've been frozen in place. Wang Jian's subordinates said. The others were bandaging the wounds of the people they had just rescued. Because the small bus had been blown up, some of the broken glass had pierced into the bodies of the people they had just rescued. Some of the people had also been injured because of falling down. I don't know. No matter what happened, it's a good thing for us. Wang Jian said calmly. He stood by the window and used his night vision goggles to observe the zombie horde below. In the end, Li Honglin's plan to lure the zombies away naturally failed. As for Wang Jian and the others, after rescuing the people, they drove the long road to the Universal Base. They had to enter the new base as soon as possible because they hadn't eaten for 2 days. They had been relying on water to support themselves, so they were already dizzy from hunger. There were also some who were sick and their conditions were fluctuating. In a situation where they hadn't eaten anything, their condition would definitely not be any better. If they dragged on, their condition would only worsen. Therefore, when they wanted to take the long road, it was a race against time. The next day, Xiaodong came back to report to Lin Xiao. Last night, we took the long road. It's estimated that we will only be able to enter the upper city this afternoon. However, the ordinary people are not in good condition. They have been starving for 2 to 3 days, and many of them are sick. Xiaodong's voice was hoarse as he continued. There aren't many ability users who died, but there seems to be some internal conflict among the ability users. The troops are already faintly divided into 2 groups, and they're following far behind those ordinary people, taking a detour. If they don't take the long road, do they really think they can pass through the zombie horde? Lin Xiao said indifferently. His expression didn't seem to care. Chapter 743. Another day and night passed. Wang Jian and the rest, who could have arrived at the Universal Base earlier, were delayed by 2 days. However, they were once again blocked by a wall of zombies. Why is it another zombie horde? The people following Wang Jian's group all had ugly expressions on their faces. This path was blocked by zombies. Did that mean they would have to take a detour? But looking at the pale faces of the survivors behind them, Wang Jian's group did not know how long they could last. Even Wang Jian's group, who had strong physiques, could barely hold on after several days of not eating and only drinking water. Lu Tong's group, who was following them from afar, also noticed the situation. Chun Hao, you were actually defeated by Wang Jian's group. What a disgrace to all ability users. Li Honglin was standing on the rooftop of a building about 700 to 800 meters away from Wang Jian's group, holding a pair of binoculars in his hand as he observed the situation ahead. At the same time, he criticized Chun Hao, who was beside him. If you can do it, why don't you go? Chun Hao looked at him coldly and said. Lu Tong looked at Chun Hao with an unreadable expression and said, All right, now is not the time to talk about that. Now is not the time for that. Chun Hao, if you don't want to come with us, you can leave. Leave? I want to return our portion of the zombie cores to us, and we won't bother you anymore. Chun Hao turned his head and looked at him with a smile. Zombie cores? Didn't I already give them to you? Lu Tong smiled back at him. Gave them to me? How come I didn't know about it? Chun Hao looked straight at him. Lu Tong did not show any fear in his eyes and said with a faint smile, "Is that so? Then I remember giving them to you." After saying that, Lu Tong winked at Chun Hao. When Chun Hao saw the wink, he immediately understood what he meant. He silently turned his head away and did not say anything. Lu Tong's wink was telling him that he still had something to use against him. He could do whatever he wanted, and whatever he said was the truth. Chun Hao looked into the distance expressionlessly, but his heart was filled with killing intent. When Wang Jian's group saw the zombie horde, they were shocked. Because they were already very close to the zombies would soon be able to smell them and discover them. Just when they were mentally prepared to be discovered by the zombies and be swarmed to attack them, all of a sudden, a figure descended from above, appearing right in front of Wang Jian and the others. As soon as they saw the figure, Wang Jian and the rest did not dare to move. This was a female zombie. She was thin and tall. She was only wearing a thin but very clean professional attire in the winter. He was wearing a white shirt that was tied around his waist, and a pair of straight and slender legs were wrapped in black tight-fitting trousers. On his feet was a pair of flat leather shoes. It made him look even more slender. The female zombie's face was very clean, but her face was pale. There were familiar dark circles around his eyes. His eyes were pitch black, and there were 2 rays of green light in the middle of his pupils. It was a zombie leader. Seeing the gleam in the female zombie's eyes, Wang Jian and the others could guess the level of the female zombie. Zombie 5 looked at the car Wang Jian was in, then tilted her head and looked at the dozens of trucks behind them. Then she suddenly stood on the side of the road, raised her hand, and waved at the group of zombies. Roar! The female zombie waved her hand and roared at the group of zombies, and the zombies that were originally blocking the middle of the road all parted to the sides. This time, Wang Jian and the others were dumbfounded. They looked at the female zombie standing on the side of the road, and then looked at the group of zombies that had parted the road. After watching silently for a few seconds, the person next to Wang Jian said with a face full of disbelief, Is she planning to let us pass? Or is she trying to let us pass and then block our way out? And is the location of the new base really here? Boss, are you sure you're not mistaken? After hearing his words, Wang Jian immediately came back to his senses. He carefully looked at the female zombie leader and saw that she was wearing clean clothes. Her expression was indifferent, unlike the other zombies who had a ferocious look on their faces. Moreover, he had heard that the new base was indeed in this location. Wang Jian thought for a moment, then shook his head. Our direction is not wrong. But the situation in front of us, we need more research to know what's going on. Roar! Just as Wang Jian was staring at the group of zombies and studying the female zombie, he saw the female zombie raise her other hand, slightly frowning, and with a face full of impatience, she waved her hand in the direction of the group of zombies that had parted the road. Her action was like that of a normal person, and it was very obvious that she was waving her hand to let them pass. Wang Jian and the others were dumbfounded. Even Li Honglin and the others who were behind them were also dumbfounded. She's letting us pass? The person next to Wang Jian had a face full of bewilderment. Wang Jian looked at the female zombie, and then looked at the group of zombies that had parted the road for them. He couldn't make up his mind, but after thinking for a moment, he made a decision. I'll go first. If I go there, it'll be fine. If I go there, I'll let you guys come over. He said, No, it's too dangerous. If someone is going, it's me. Boss, you're our boss now. Nothing can happen to you. If something happens to you, think about the 1,000 people behind you. Huang Tiangu, who had been following Wang Jian all along, immediately stood in front of him and said resolutely, I'll go. If something happens to me, you guys will take care of them. I believe in you guys. Wang Jian raised his hands and placed them on Huang Tiangu's shoulders as he looked into his eyes and said, Let me go, boss. Huang Tiangu immediately begged him with a sullen face. No, this is an order. Wang Jian's face was stiff, and he pushed Huang Tiangu to the side. After saying that, he immediately took a big step forward and walked towards the path that the zombies had parted for them. Although Wang Jian's face was full of righteousness, his heart was beating like a drum. When he walked in front of the female zombie, His heart was in his throat. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at the female zombie. Roar! When the female zombie saw him walking in front of her, she immediately waved her hand at him in disgust, urging him to go further in. Number 5 felt helpless in his heart. If it wasn't for Boss Meng Meng's order, he wouldn't have made a move on these humans, so as not to scare them. She really wanted to use a whip to drive them in. Wang Jian, who was obviously disgusted, froze for a moment, then walked in with a strange expression on his face. After being interrupted by the female zombie's disgust, Wang Jian's nervous heart suddenly relaxed a lot. When he gathered his courage and walked to the middle of the path, he discovered that the surrounding zombies really weren't moving at all. Wang Jian's mind suddenly flashed, and he thought back to the time when those people and Duan were taken away by that strange woman. At that time, outside the walls of the Netherworld King's base, there was also a zombie passage. Thinking up to here, Wang Jian suddenly understood something. He stopped, turned his head, and waved at the people behind him, who were 200 to 300 meters away. Quickly come over. Go. Go directly. Chapter 744. Seeing Wang Jian suddenly turn around and wave at them, Huang Tinga and the others were at a loss. Boss wants us to go over? He asked the person beside him. Maybe. The people around him also looked at Wang Jian's actions with uncertainty. Zombie 5 silently watched as Wang Jian walked past, her heart crossed with a cross. Not a handsome guy. His facial features were tough, but his skin was relatively clean. Apart from his slightly darker skin tone, his temperament was quite good. 80 points. Look at the next one. She turned to look at Huang Tinga and the others, and stared at their faces for a while. Although this one looked more pleasing to the eye, he wasn't handsome enough. His face was too black. 50 points. This one was not good-looking. His eyes were drooping, and his nose was too flat. 45 points. This one was not bad, just that the eyes were a little small, although the small eyes were very interesting. But his mouth was ugly. 65 points. Huang Tinga and others didn't know that their appearance was in the eyes of this female zombie. Why aren't there any handsome guys? She wanted to see handsome men. He really wanted to go back and see Deputy Leader Yuan. I really want to go back and see Big Sis Corpse's little brother. I really want to go back and see handsome guys. Seeing that Huang Tinga and the others were still hesitating, Zombie 5 became even more annoyed. Roar! She opened her mouth and roared in annoyance. Her figure suddenly flashed. He leaped in the direction of Huang Tinga and the others, and then landed on the roof of their car nimbly and elegantly. Bang, bang, bang. Roar! The female zombie jumped down from the roof of the car. She stood next to the car and used her hand to hit the hood of the car. Her other hand pointed in the direction of Wang Jian as she shouted at Huang Tinga and the others. Because of the female zombie's sudden approach, Huang Tinga and the others who were already close together looked at her with fear. She's urging us to go. One of the people who was blocked by Huang Tinga behind him didn't know if it was because there was someone in front of him. He wasn't that scared and didn't have the mood to guess what the female zombie meant. Huang Tinga looked at the female zombie with fear and confusion and carefully asked, Can we really go over? The female zombie impatiently looked at the human with small eyes, frowned, and nodded. Then he pointed at Wang Jian's direction. Coincidentally, Wang Jian waved his hand again. However, Huang Tinga was shocked. She nodded. He looked at his companions beside him. The others nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, Number 5 had already run out of patience. Seeing that these idiots weren't leaving, he couldn't help but laugh. Thus, he immediately used his hands to support himself on the hood of the car, leaped up, and kicked off with his long legs. In the blink of an eye, he flipped from the car to the opposite side, standing in front of Huang Tinga and the others. Before Huang Tinga and the rest could even react, Number 5 grabbed Huang Tinga's shirt and tossed him towards Wang Jian. Bang, ouch! Huang Tinga was thrown out with a dumbfounded look on his face. Then, he fell to the ground more than 10 meters away with a bang. The fall made him dizzy and suffocated in his chest. After rolling on the ground twice, he found that he seemed to be fine. Before he could get up from the ground, he heard another followed by another bang. Someone landed beside him, kicking up a cloud of dust. When Huang Tinga got up and saw the situation clearly, his companions who were on the other side of the car had been thrown over like him. "Hey, old who? Hurry up and drive the car over, hurry up!" Huang Tinga quickly shouted to the only remaining driver in the car. If he didn't shout, he was worried that the female zombie would lift the whole car and throw it at them. Thinking about that scene, I'll drive over. Don't throw me. The driver, old who, had originally watched Huang Tinga and the others get thrown out. He was already a bit dumbfounded. However, when he heard Huang Tinga's voice, he immediately came to his senses. Then he saw that the female zombie was already standing next to his car door. He was so scared that he immediately raised his hands in surrender. After saying that, he put down his hands and held the steering wheel, then stepped on the clutch and then released the brake. Seeing that he was about to drive away, Number 5 immediately took 2 steps back to let him pass. Lin Xiao didn't know that Wang Jian and the others were thrown into the outer perimeter of the base. When she received the news from Xiaodong, she couldn't help but laugh. This female zombie number 5 was the only zombie leader in the first batch that hadn't reached level 6 yet. Before the blood exchange, she was still a very normal zombie. But after the blood exchange, it was as if something had awakened in her, and her entire personality changed. According to Elmar's words at the time, this girl liked to stare at handsome men. As long as it was a handsome man, she would hide by the side and secretly look at them. Now, these people who came from the Hell King's base were thrown into the pit in such a rude manner. Obviously, it was because these people weren't good looking. Do you think she used to be very infatuated? Even after becoming a zombie, she still likes to look at handsome men. Lin Xiao looked at Qiu Lily speechlessly and asked. Maybe. Qiu Lily played with her long hair and nodded indifferently. Then, she impatiently turned around and said, let's go find the next mutant. In these few days, they had already circled half of the West Lake and killed a lot of mutant beasts and mutant plants. Adding up the big and small ones, there were more than a dozen energy cores. The harvest was not bad. 3 level 6 energy cores, 5 level 5 energy cores. Adding up to 10 level 4 and level 3 energy cores, there were also 10. Lin Xiao nodded and said, okay, let's go. Just as she was about to move, her expression suddenly froze. Then, she stopped her movements and looked to the side. What's wrong? Qiu Lily looked at her strangely and asked. Someone is coming. Lin Xiao's eyes were fixed in that direction, and she said calmly. However, from her tone, it seemed like she knew who it was, and she didn't like it. Feeling the strangeness in Lin Xiao's tone, Qiu Lily asked curiously, oh, who is it? Although she asked Lin Xiao that, Qiu Lily extended her perception in the direction that Lin Xiao was looking at. Lin Xiao retracted her gaze and said, a troublesome person. After saying that, she suddenly retracted her aura. Qiu Lily tried to sense it, but she couldn't sense as far as Lin Xiao. She looked at Lin Xiao strangely and said, it can't be. Wu Qingyue, right? She was completely guessing. Looking at the current situation, the only person who could make Lin Xiao mention a troublesome person was Wu Qingyue, who came to propose to her not long ago. Lin Xiao looked at her and didn't say anything. However, Qiu Lily's words had hit the nail on the head. That's right, the aura that she sensed was Wu Qingyue's aura. However, why would this man come to the West Lake? Moreover, he was in a forest that was full of mutants. If there wasn't a special need, humans wouldn't go near such a place. Chapter 745. On the other side, Wu Qingyue brought Xiao Liqing, Mo Li, and a team of soldiers. There weren't many people, just a platoon. Wu Qingyue parked the car at the entrance of the West Lake Forest Park. His slender figure stood in front of the army green SUV with his hands crossed in front of his chest. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly on his handsome face. His long and narrow eyes narrowed into a line with a faint smile. The cold wind fluttered the hem of his black military jacket. Under the jacket, his long legs were slightly spread apart. Although he had a smile on his face, his temperament was mostly concealed by the black military uniform, making him appear much more rigorous and tough. If that Thunder Beast is taken by Miss Liu, what are you going to give her in exchange? Mo Li, who was also dressed in black, stood beside Wu Qingyue expressionlessly. She held a map in her hand and looked around. Also, this Thunder Beast level. If it's level 7, it will be a bit tricky for us. The Thunder Beast she was talking about is a mutated beast that awakened the Thunder element. We haven't found out what it looks like. We only know that there is such a beast that is active in the forest around the whole West Lake. We don't know what level it looks like, and we don't know how strong it is. We don't know the level of this Thunder Beast. Although it takes a long time for mutated beasts to level up, there are many level 6 mutated beasts in this area. However, there were many level 6 mutants in this area. Perhaps this Thunder Beast was only level 6 at most. Even if it breaks through to level 7, it won't be that easy. Wu Qingyue smiled and glanced at Mo Li. As for what if that female zombie finds it first? She doesn't seem to have any thunder element. I can use something else to exchange with her. Anything is fine. As he said this, he smiled. His smile had an indecipherable meaning. Emily looked up at him and didn't say anything. She just felt that his smile was not the same as usual. On the other side, Xiao Liqing heard Wu Qingyue's words and turned to look at his smile. He silently rolled his eyes in his heart. This I have a chance to get close to her was too obvious. You look like you'll give her whatever she wants. You look like you're ready to squander. Big brother, don't forget your identity. You have to be more serious, understand? Emily looked at Wu Qingyue a few times before finally speaking with an expressionless face. Did you forget that he just proposed to her? I think he can't wait to sell Lingling now. Xiao Liqing said quietly at the side. He didn't forget that Princess Lingling was still in the universal base. And as a father, he already looked like he wanted to sell his daughter. You two, father and daughter, are really strange. One wanted to sell out his father, and now the other wants to sell out his daughter. It's all because of that. Miss Liu. After thinking about it, Xiao Liqing couldn't help but complain. Come to think of it, she's the only one who can make Lingling rely on her so much. I really don't know how she did it, Wu Qingyue said after thinking about it. Just based on this point, this female zombie already met his requirements. At first, he was a little hesitant because the other party was a zombie, but then he realized that as long as she was willing, she could control the zombie virus in her body. But he didn't know why. But he had a hunch that this female zombie wouldn't lose control. That was why he was so relieved to leave Lingling to her. Although he didn't have any evidence, it was completely based on intuition. But Wu Qingyue just felt that this female zombie leader gave him a very reliable feeling. At least as a nanny, she was very reliable, and he didn't like her at all. At most, he was very interested. In terms of feelings, they didn't have much contact, so of course there wouldn't be any deep feelings. But the feeling he had for her body was deeper. Thinking about this, Wu Qingyue once again thought of the female zombie's hot body. Just the two deep contact had left a deep impression on him, to the point that he couldn't forget. That's true. It's the first time I've seen Miss Lingling like someone so much. Emily nodded in agreement. Then she looked at the map, and then looked at the surrounding environment. There were mutated flowers, trees, vines, and shrubs all intertwined together. It was even more lush than before, and the frantic growth had long destroyed the original appearance. So even if she looked at the map, if she wasn't careful, she would get lost in this mutated forest. My feeling is over there, it should be right. Emily finally pointed to a direction and said. She was a spiritual ability user, although not as sensitive as a Logia ability user, but her sixth sense had the same effect as a Logia ability user. Because Mengyu had to follow Xiao Yunlong to do things, Wu Qingyue let Emily replace her position on his side. Then let's go. Right? Didn't you feel their presence? Wu Qingyue nodded and finally asked tentatively. No. Emily's pretty face was expressionless, and she replied faintly. Wu Qingyue's smile faded, and his disappointed expression was very obvious. He sighed and said, well, let's find the Thunder Beast first. Meaning after finding the Thunder Beast, he still had to find his wife. It turned out that his wife was now the second place in his heart. Boss, you're so careless in chasing after your wife. Is it just for fun? Xiao Liqing silently thought in his heart. But after thinking about it, he understood Wu Qingyue's mentality. Right now, his big brother actually didn't have much feelings for this Miss Liu. He wanted to marry her. Firstly, It was because Miss Lu could gain Miss Lingling's complete reliance. Secondly, it could be because Miss Lu raped him last year. Thirdly, he didn't know. Maybe it was just that after turning into a zombie, she seemed to have changed into a different person, so his boss was particularly interested in her. He had followed his boss for so many years, but he still couldn't guess his boss's thoughts. But then again, he didn't know if it was his illusion. In fact, after turning into a zombie, Miss Lu was even more beautiful than before. Her bare face was still the same face, but without the makeup, she looked more pleasing to the eye. And her temperament had also become cold and tough, and the aura of a superior was too strong. It was completely different from before when she was obviously as vulgar as a prostitute, but still had to pretend to be cold and delicate. Even if she was beautiful, the heavy makeup on her face reduced her beauty by 5 points. No matter how good her figure was, the prostitute aura on her body made her look like a prostitute who sold her body, just like a prostitute. These were all strong feelings that Xiao Liqing had, because only he knew that this Miss Lu was the Lu Tianyu from before. But in the eyes of others, they were two women that couldn't be linked together. Wu Qingyue had Rogfei store all the cars into the space. Then he brought everyone into the mutated forest on foot. Chapter 746. Lin Xiao restrained his breath and led Xiao Lily, Lu Tianyi, Xin Yuzhen, Jing Yin, and the other zombies to take a detour, avoiding the possibility of meeting Wu Qingyue, and went in another direction. Wu Qingyue and the others were on the periphery of the green belt at the edge of West Lake, while Lin Xiao led the zombies through the woods and entered the inner area, which was the shore of West Lake. Such a large West Lake originally had a lot of creatures in the water. Now that it was the end of the world, 99% of the world's water resources had been infected by the virus, and the remaining 1% had not been discovered in some hidden area. Therefore, the water of the entire West Lake had also been infected. The creatures in the lake had also lost their original posture and appearance because of the mutation. If the humans in the woods and mountains were afraid of the mutants, then the mutants in the water were even more mysterious and dangerous. It was still unknown what Lin Xiao's zombie team would encounter, but the situation of the Black Dragon base in the far northeast was not optimistic. Because although the assassinations inside the base had stopped, the zombie tide outside had erupted. The wall that was more than 10 meters high could not stop the crazy zombies that had lost their minds and were piling up like a pyramid. Roar, roar, roar. Roar, roar, roar. The zombies outside the wall were roaring. Countless zombies looked like a pile of ants from afar, piling up along the bottom of the wall. The top of the wall was full of Black Dragon base's metahumans and soldiers. All kinds of metahumans fell from above, attacking the zombies that were constantly climbing up the wall. And the soldiers without metahumans kept shooting bullets in their hands, hitting the zombies' heads or missing. Don't let the zombies climb over the wall. We must hold on. Vice leader Meng Yuxuan, who was guarding the front line, waved his hand, and countless green vines immediately grew on the wall below him. The vines quickly grew bigger and bigger, and the tentacles grew longer and longer, climbing down along the wall, twisting the zombies that climbed up one after another. However, he could only calm down on one side of the wall, within a range of 500 meters around him. The zombies were unable to jump over the wall. But more than 500 meters away from him, they could only rely on other people to resist the zombies. This was only the battle situation in front of them. If the people on the wall looked out, they would see that within a range of 1 kilometer outside the wall, there were zombies crowding over. At a glance, there were already tens of thousands of zombies, which made people's scalps tingle. They were clearly just ordinary zombies that moved slowly, but right now they were all lively and agile. One by one, they bared their fangs and brandished their claws, ran to the bottom of the wall at an extremely fast speed, and then used all 4 limbs to climb the top of the pile of zombies at the foot of the wall. As for the metahumans on the wall, their attacks could not keep up with the speed of the zombies climbing up. Not to mention the bullets of ordinary soldiers. No matter how fast they fired, there would always be a time when they ran out of bullets. Meng Yuxuan's face was full of sweat from anxiety, and at the same time, he had to control his ability to use the largest range to block the zombies' invasion. He hurriedly pulled the person next to him and shouted, Quick, go and report that there are too many zombies outside the outer wall. Just relying on these low-level paranormals is not enough. We have to use Plan S. Yes. Once the man heard this, he immediately turned around and rushed down the wall towards the inner area. Meanwhile, in the central command center inside the base, Gao Haoyun and Du Kuanxing led the remaining 2 deputy leaders and other combatants to look at the structure of the Black Dragon base. Everyone present had an extremely depressed expression on their faces. After hearing the situation reported, Du Kuanxing immediately agreed. I agree to use Plan S. Gao Haoyun's face was gloomy, and he did not utter a word. His gaze was fixated on the base's map, not knowing what he was thinking. I also agree. Leader, quickly give the order. If we are late, it will be too late. The other deputy leader also nodded and said, Are you sure? These weapons are the most lethal weapons we currently have. If we use them up, there will be no more. But the zombie horde is endless. If we use the last of our weapons and still cannot completely eliminate the zombie horde, then our only way out is to abandon all the survivors in this base. Gao Haoyun said gloomily. Then our only way out is to abandon all the survivors in this base. Gao Haoyun said gloomily. As soon as he said this, the others immediately looked at each other. Just the 2 of us can't stop these zombies? Du Kuanxing said disapprovingly. Can't the 2 of us hold off these zombies? Du Kuanxing said disapprovingly. Even if you, me, and Meng Yuxuan can block 3 directions and use weapons to resist the last direction. Even if you, me, and Meng Yuxuan can block 3 directions and use weapons to resist the last direction. But can you guarantee that you can continuously use your ability for 3 days and 3 nights? 3 days and 3 nights? This zombie horde should not last for 3 days and 3 nights. Du Kuanxing pursed his lips and said, If it is just a natural zombie horde, then the time is hard to say. Maybe it will stop in 1 day. Maybe it will take 10 days to half a month. But this time it is not a natural zombie horde. It is purposefully triggered. Do you think the opponent will let the zombie horde play for 2 days and then go back? Gao Haoyun looked up at Du Kuanxing. His eyes flashed a cold light. Then what should we do? You say it. Du Kuanxing spread his hands and directly expressed his attitude. Because the previous assassination incident had not yet ended, this zombie horde suddenly erupted. This made Gao Haoyun have no choice but to link this zombie horde with the killer. But he could not think of how the killer attracted the zombie horde. He did not even touch the shadow of the killer. But in Gao Haoyun's heart, he only thought that it was the secret person in the dark who might have something that could attract the zombies. That was why the zombie horde was attracted. He would never have thought that the secret person did not use anything to attract the zombies, but just gave an order to the rank 2nd kings beside him, and the zombie horde easily erupted. Gao Haoyun frowned. He was not worried about the ordinary zombie horde, but the rank 2 king that suddenly attacked him and then disappeared. That zombie king had always been in Gao Haoyun's heart. It made him feel like he was being watched. But that rank 2 king appeared and disappeared quickly. It seemed like it did not want to fight with him for a long time. Even if Gao Haoyun was not afraid of a rank 2 king, he could not ignore the strange behavior of the opponent. The assassin that killed the metahumans that had eaten Mo Yan's flesh, the rank 2 king zombies, and the zombie horde. Putting these 3 together, Gao Haoyun felt that the situation was not as simple as it seemed. Behind this zombie horde, we need to be prepared to face several rank 1 or rank 2nd kings. If that is the case, how long do you think we can last with our weapons? Gao Haoyun said. His tone revealed the attitude of abandoning all the survivors in this base at any time. You mean to abandon all the survivors? If that is the case, I have no objections. You can do as you wish. Du Kuanxing understood what he meant. He crossed his arms and leaned back, but said with an indifferent expression. Chapter 747. Although Du Kuanxing said he didn't mind giving up the base, he immediately said, but we spent a lot of effort to build this base. Don't you think it's a little too casual to give it up just like that? At least I won't give up this place so easily. It's not the first time we've encountered a zombie tide. If we can't hold on, we'll talk about it later. At least I'll wait until the end. Obviously, the two had different opinions. Du Kunshing stood up and said to his deputy, "Pass down the order. If the outer wall is broken, everyone is to retreat to the underground base and seal the underground passage. If the zombie tide doesn't go away in 3 days and 3 nights, then we'll wait for a month in the underground base. At least our underground resources can support the lives of hundreds of thousands of people for a month." After saying that, he looked at Gao Haoyun with a gloomy expression and turned to leave. These words represented his decision. He wouldn't give up this place so easily. It didn't matter if it was a zombie tide, a zombie king, or a zombie emperor. He didn't want to give up until the last moment. This was his base, and he was responsible for the lives of the survivors here. He had spent years and a lot of effort to build this underground base. He didn't want to abandon everyone in the base like he did a few years ago. Gao Haoyun expressionlessly watched him leave. Du Kunshing didn't know that the group of people who had died previously were basically all the paranormals who had eaten Mo Yan's flesh and blood. Gao Haoyun and Meng Yuxuan were the last two, and also the highest level. Since the assassin had led the zombie horde here, it was only to destroy the entire base, and then cover up the matter with the zombie horde. Then the underground base would definitely be breached. Since that was the case, it was better to leave early. But the number of helicopters that left was not many. Even if they flew back and forth, it would be impossible to take away all 700,000 to 800,000 people. After a few minutes of silence, Gao Haoyun gave the order, "Activate the S-plan." Yes. The remaining two deputy leaders immediately responded and quickly turned to leave. On the other side, Meng Yuxuan looked at the incalculable amount of densely packed zombies below the wall. Every second that passed, the hope in his heart was diminishing. However, the ability in his hands was still being released. The city wall was covered with a large number of green vines. The vines were dancing, and the vines were constantly twisting and curling, whipping the zombies that had just climbed up. Just at this time, in the distant zombie crowd, 3 figures scattered in 3 directions mixed in the zombie crowd, quickly sneaking toward Meng Yuxuan. These 3 figures retracted their auras and were not discovered by Meng Yuxuan. Meng Yuxuan didn't get a response from the base, so he became a little impatient. His ability was Logia. If he was in the woods or mountains, then his ability would be very powerful. However, there were no plants within a kilometer of the city wall. Even beyond that kilometer, there were more buildings in the city. Therefore, it was very strenuous for Meng Yuxuan to release a large number of abilities at this time. He even thought that it would be great if he was a wind ability user. At the very least, it was more advantageous for the wind element to be high up. Meng Yuxuan was controlling his ability to attack the zombies climbing up the wall while waiting for instructions from inside the base. Those 3 figures were gradually approaching him without anyone noticing. Suddenly, Meng Yuxuan's heart palpitated. His whole body suddenly became cold. A feeling of extreme danger rose from his back. He suddenly turned his head and saw that the sky behind him was filled with a large number of sharp metal objects. The moment he turned his head, the motionless metal objects that were floating in the air suddenly shot toward him. Shio, shio, shio. Woo, woo, woo. The sound of metal cutting through the air resounded. Meng Yuxuan fiercely widened his eyes and reflexively waved his hand. In front of him, a large number of vines rushed out and tightly wrapped him. Poo, poo, poo. Countless sharp metal objects shot into the vines that suddenly grew out crazily. Although they pierced through the outer leaves, they couldn't pierce through the thick vines inside. Bang! At this time, a very hot fireball smashed over and directly hit Meng Yuxuan's vine cocoon. That's right. When Meng Yuxuan's vines helped him block those sharp metal objects, he wrapped himself into a huge vine cocoon shape. This fireball's heat was much higher than ordinary flames. Once it burned the vine cocoon, it immediately burned the green leaves. After the flames subsided, a large number of metal objects immediately flew up and melted in the air. Finally, they turned into a liquid metal liquid. Then, this liquid metal surged and rushed towards Meng Yuxuan's giant cocoon. Pooh! Once the liquid metal object came into contact with the giant cocoon, it immediately wrapped the entire giant cocoon and formed a huge metal ball. Then, at this time, there was a sudden eagle cry. A huge figure flew from the side and flipped in the air. Then, it immediately brought along a huge shadow and pounced toward the metal ball. A huge bird flapped its two huge wings and flew down, bringing along a dark shadow. Its steel-like claws directly pierced through the metal ball. It grabbed the huge metal ball and lifted it up before flying away. Bang, bang, bang. After the metal ball was picked up by the huge bird, several huge fireballs were thrown at the wall. Ah, not good. Vice Leader Meng was taken away. What is that? Is it a mutated beast zombie or a metahuman? Not good. This side's defensive line has been broken. The zombies are attacking. Without Meng Yuxuan, this part of the wall immediately collapsed. Countless zombies climbed up the wall without the vines blocking them. Then, they directly fell down the wall. Then, they climbed up from the ground and continued to rush forward. Some climbed to the top of the wall, turned around and pounced toward the soldiers or metahumans on the wall. The appearance of the huge bird caused a huge commotion. Many people raised their heads and saw this huge bird. This was a human-faced giant eagle. It had a human-like face. The shape of the feathers on its body showed that it was a giant eagle that was tens of times bigger than normal. When Gao Haoyan received the news that Meng Yuxuan had been captured, Meng Yuxuan's corpse had already been thrown back. His mouth was torn apart. His entire chin was torn from ear to ear. Blood was dripping. Below his chest, there was a big bloody hole in his stomach. From the looks of it, it was the same as the people who died before. Without looking, it was obvious that the stomach was gone. This is Vice Leader Meng. He's dead. Seeing Meng Yuxuan, who was thrown down and could not be more dead, the surrounding humans were shocked. Chapter 748. Du Kuanxing had received the news of the zombie invasion earlier than Gao Haoyun. He had already sent his subordinates to bring most of the survivors to the underground base that was more than 20 meters underground. At this time, he was quickly rushing to the gap in the wall that the zombies had broken through, bringing along a large snowstorm. The ice-cold wind mixed with the white snow blew towards the wall. The huge wind immediately blew the zombies on the wall down one after another. The falling snowflakes reduced the visibility of the surrounding people. Looking up, all they could see was the snowstorm, and the cold wind made their scalps numb. Du Kuanxing's snowstorm did not have much effect on the zombies. At most, it could blow the zombies off the wall, but it could not freeze them all. On the other hand, the surrounding paranormals and humans were so cold that their hands and feet trembled and their movements slowed down. However, it did have a clear effect on stopping the zombie invasion. Regardless of what would happen to the Black Dragon base, Lin Xiao had already bypassed Wu Qingyue and entered the forest by the lake. The water plants by the lake had grown wildly and had long covered the fence built by the lake. The lake water was dark and muddy, and there was a kind of uneasy feeling coming from the water. Lin Xiao stood on a tree by the lake, observing the movement by the water. The other zombies scattered behind her and found a place to stay. They did not dare to get too close to the lake, because the lake gave them a dangerous feeling. Only Lin Xiao and Qiu Lily could get close to it, under Mo Li's guidance. Wu Qingyue finally found the Thunder Beast after a day of searching and saw its true appearance. This is a flower. Xiao Liqing curiously looked at the purple flower perched on the back of the mutated beast. The flower was very beautiful and very big. Each of the 5 petals had a purplish-red tail, and the light yellow stamen in the middle was like a phoenix's tail, with an eye pattern at the end. The lower part of the flower grew from the mutated beast's hard shell. Below it was a giant tortoise-like beast with a huge turtle shell on its back. The beautiful and strange flower had bloomed directly from its shell. It looked like it grew from the body of the giant tortoise, but the turtle shell with the flower on it looked like it was living on it. This giant tortoise is so big. How heavy is it? A ton? 2 tons? Xiao Liqing looked at the turtle, which was the size of a small house, lying motionless on the ground, and continued to look at it strangely. Look, there is an electric current flashing in the middle of the flower, Emoli suddenly said, pointing at the middle of the purple flower. Wu Qingyue and Xiao Liqing looked at the center of the flower. Sure enough, They saw a tiny electric current flashing in the center of the flower. This flower and the tortoise are probably not a single entity. They're just using each other. The flower seemed to be able to separate itself from the ground, but it probably couldn't move too far. Therefore, it attached itself to the tortoise that could run all over the mountain. "Look, it's a snapping turtle," Wu Qingyue said after looking at it for a while. It didn't even stick its head out. "How do you know it's a snapping turtle?" Emily glanced at him. "You can tell by looking at the patterns and characteristics on the shell," Wu Qingyue said with a smile. Emily and Xiao Liqing stared at the back of the big turtle, trying to see if there was anything different about it from a normal turtle. But after looking for a while, he realized that all the tortoises looked the same. What did this guy eat to grow so big? Did all mutated animals have gigantism in their genes? They're tens of times bigger than before, Xiao Liqing said with a frown. Otherwise, why would it be called a mutant beast? Isn't it normal? Wu Qingyue said with a smile. At this moment, the purple flower that was growing quietly on the turtle's back suddenly moved. It moved towards Wu Qingyue and the others. It gave them a strange feeling that the flower was looking at them. "This mutant flower has found us," Wu Qingyue said with a flash in his eyes. "It's about to attack." Seeing that the purple flower began to shake its head, it swung its 5 tails hanging down from its petals. The frequency of the electric current in the middle was getting faster and faster, and it seemed to be getting bigger and bigger. Everyone looked at it with caution. Although they were not worried about being attacked by a mutant flower, they still had to be careful. After all, this flower was still very strange to them. When the forest was big, there were all kinds of birds. After the apocalypse, all kinds of mutants were born, and some of them even had unexpected skills. So after the apocalypse, all the animals and plants had become intelligent. After the purple flower moved its bottom, the electric current in the flower's stamen became brighter and brighter. Zzz, the sound of the electric current came from afar. Rumble. Then, the sky began to rumble with muffled thunder. Wu Qingyue and the others looked up. There were no dark clouds in the sky, but there was indeed a muffled thunder. On the other side, Lin Xiao also looked up at the sky with a puzzled expression. It was strange. The sky was clear and the clouds were light. Where did the thunder come from? Could it be the sound of a weapon exploding? After the thunder came from the sky, the turtle that was lying motionless on the ground like a big rock also moved. Its shell shook, and then it left the ground. For thick and sturdy legs propped up on the bottom were revealed. A ferocious big turtle also came out of the shell. It turned its head and looked left and right. However, judging from its slow reaction, it seemed that its perception had not evolved yet. It looked left and right, but did not notice anything wrong. But since the mutant flower on its back let out a thunderous sound, it meant that there was an intruder in the surroundings. The alligator snapping turtle turned its head left and right and did not see anything strange. It stomped on its 4 thick legs, which would require 2 people to wrap their arms around it, and began to turn its whole body in a circle to continue to check the surrounding situation. Rumble, crackle, crackle. At this time, a thunderbolt landed around Wu Qingyue and the others, blasting the trees and grass into black smoke and flames. The big turtle seemed to have received some instructions. It immediately turned its body slowly and stared fiercely in the direction of Wu Qingyue and the others. Bang, bang, bang. After confirming the direction, the alligator snapping turtle immediately walked towards Wu Qingyue and the others. Bang, bang, bang. Another 2 thunderbolts flashed from the sky and exploded 100 meters around Wu Qingyue and the others. Wu Qingyue also noticed that before the thunderbolts fell, the electric current in the middle of the flower would rise up. Then the thunderbolts fell from the sky. It seemed that the thunder beast was not the alligator snapping turtle, but the flower. Chapter 749. It's that flower. It attracted the thunder energy. Wu Qingyue squinted his eyes, and a light flashed in his eyes. Roar. The alligator snapping turtle opened its mouth wide and roared. Its fangs were gleaming with a sharp, cold light. Bang, 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 bang. Then, the alligator snapping turtle ran toward Wu Qingyue and the others with its 4 thick legs. It was really running, and it was very fast. Because of its huge body and weight, the surrounding ground was shaking. The flowers and trees were crushed and knocked here and there. None of them could stop the alligator snapping turtle's running speed. Wow, is this still a turtle? It's running so fast. Xiao Liqing's eyes widened slightly. Do it, Wu Qinghua ordered and waved his hand. Kacha, a thick thunderbolt with electric light, struck the alligator snapping turtle. Boom! The level of this thunderflower was not high. It was only at the 5th level. However, the evolution level of this alligator snapping turtle was not low. It had already entered the 7th level. When Wu Qinghua's thunderbolt struck, the thick shell of the alligator snapping turtle suddenly emitted a green rainbow light, enveloping its own thunderflower. When the lightning struck down, the energy of the attack was actually blocked by the rainbow light. It was like an energy shield, protecting the alligator snapping turtle and the thunderflower inside. The thunderflower raised its flower disc and pointed it at the sky. Its 5 petals swayed in the air, even though there was no wind. Then, its 5 petals flashed with purple light and concentrated at the position of the flower's stamen. Then it flashed out from the stamen and shot toward the sky. Kachaboom! Another thunderbolt without clouds struck from the sky, but this time, it struck on top of Wu Qinghua's head. Wu Qinghua raised his hand and directly caught the thunderbolt in his hand, then casually threw it. He threw the thunderbolt toward the alligator's snapping turtle. Bang! However, it was once again blocked by the alligator snapping turtle's energy shield. While the battle had just begun, Lin Xiao, who was on the other side, sensed the energy fluctuations curiously. Lightning element? She looked up at the sky in that position. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Originally, she thought that Wu Qinghua was the only one who had created the lightning. However, she soon discovered that the other lightning's energy was different from Wu Qinghua's. Are they looking for the lightning mutant? Qiu Lily looked up at the sky. With such a huge commotion, it would be hard for her not to notice. Maybe. Lin Xiao retracted his gaze and continued to observe the movements by the lake. On the other side, the alligator snapping turtle realized that its companion's attack had no effect, so it immediately rushed forward with its thick legs. It quickly charged towards the tree Wu Qinghua was on. Bang! The speed of this alligator snapping turtle was really fast. When it rushed over, Wu Qinghua immediately jumped out of the tree. Then, he heard a loud noise. The tree he was just on was hit by a loud sound. Then, the leaves were swept away and fell to the ground. Roar! The alligator snapping turtle didn't seem to be affected at all. It roared again and continued to chase after Wu Qinghua. Wherever it went, it would smash everything in its path. Rocks, grass, and trees were all thrown into the air. The alligator snapping turtle ran and ran. Suddenly, its 4 limbs bent, and it fiercely jumped up. Oh my God! As a giant tortoise! Is it really okay for you to jump so high and with such a light posture? Xiao Liqing looked at the giant turtle flying over his head with his mouth wide open. Boom dash! The alligator snapping turtle directly landed on the ground. Then, it rushed towards Xiao Liqing, who was closest to it. Xiao Liqing did a side flip and immediately dodged. At the same time, he waved his hand and used his ability to block the attack. A thick wall rose from the ground and blocked the path of the alligator snapping turtle. Bang dash! The alligator snapping turtle slammed its head into the wall. The wall was instantly smashed into pieces. After Wang Jian and the others were driven into the base by female zombie number 5, he looked back at the group of zombies. He thought that they would return to their original position and block the path. In the end, he didn't see any movement from the zombies. The path that they had opened was still there. The female zombie also didn't move. She still stood by the side of the road and waited. However, her eyes continued to look in the direction behind them as if she was waiting for someone. Why do those zombies look like they are waiting for someone? Huang Tinga looked back curiously. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, "Oh right, I don't know if Li Honglin and the other scum have come in yet." "Don't worry about the back. Finding the base is more important. Everyone here needs food and medicine. We also need a good rest." Wang Jin didn't care about what the zombies were doing. He only looked in the direction in front of him. Although they had arrived here, Wang Jin didn't know the location of the new base. After entering, he was at a loss as to whether he should go left or right. But soon, he didn't have to worry about this problem. This was because an off-road vehicle suddenly appeared beside him. You guys are the last people from the Netherworld King's base, right? Come with us. 5 people got out of the car and looked in the direction of Wang Jin's group. They were all wearing winter military uniforms and had rifles in their hands. They had hats on their heads and snowshoes on their feet. The 5 people stood in the middle of the road in front of Wang Jin's convoy. The man at the front said to Wang Jin's group, "That's right, we came from the Netherworld King's base. Are you guys from the new base?" Wang Jin immediately poked his head out of the car and looked at the 5 people in surprise. "We are from the Universal Base, which is the new base here. Since you're here, follow us." The captain nodded his head and said. Then he turned around and led his men into the car. They quickly drove in the direction of the front. "Boss, are they here to pick us up? Do the people from the new base know that we're coming?" Huang Tinga crawled from the back of the car to the front and craned his neck to look at the car in front of him. "Seems like it." Wang Jin nodded his head. With someone leading the way, the speed of their advance was very fast. Not long after, they saw many figures appear. Then they saw a tall wall. Previously, they had heard that the new base's defensive wall was already half completed. The other half was still under construction. Now that they saw this wall, Wang Jin knew that this was the half that had been completed. When they reached the main gate, there were already people waiting there. "Have you brought them? If you have, report to Vice Leader Yuan." The person in charge of the main gate said to the people in the car that had gone out to pick them up. "Oh, understood." The person in the car waved his hand in response and directly drove the car into the main gate. Wang Jin and the others who were at the back were stunned. Looking at the incomparably smooth main gate, they didn't dare to enter. Are we just going to go in like this?" The driver in Wang Jin's car looked at the front helplessly before turning his head to look at Wang Jin. Wang Jin also had a blank and uncertain expression on his face. There should be. Chapter 750. At the entrance of the base, there were no detectors or devices that could detect the presence of the virus. Just like that, they passed by emptily. Wang Jin and the others parked their cars in front of the entrance in a daze, but they didn't dare to follow the car in front of them. "Hey, are you guys still going in?" The staff at the entrance saw Wang Jin and the others stopped there and couldn't help but urge them. Wang Jin directly opened the car door and jumped out, followed by Huang Tinga. "Wait, are we really going in just like that? Didn't you guys use the detectors?" Wang Jin walked to the entrance and looked left and right as he asked the staff. The staff member glanced at him, then pointed to the top of the wall above. He said, "Oh, our detectors are up there, and this is the second test. Didn't you guys go through the first one just now?" Wang Jin looked up at the top of the wall, but he didn't see anything. He looked down at the staff in a daze. Just now? When?" He didn't know that if they had the virus in their bodies, then zombie number 5 wouldn't have let them pass the defense line. There was also a zombie guarding the entrance. As long as they were infected with Lin Xiao's virus, they would be very sensitive to normal zombie viruses. Just like how Lin Xiao could sense the energy of the virus, they had become mobile detectors. If you guys were infected, then those zombies wouldn't have let you guys pass. Even if they wanted to, they wouldn't have let you guys pass. The staff at the entrance looked up at them and said indifferently. Wang Jin and Huang Tinga looked at each other in confusion, and then they were chased inside by the staff like ducks. "Hurry up and go in. The vice leader is still waiting for you guys." "Oh, right. How did the vice leader know we were coming?" Wang Jin suddenly thought of a question. Of course they knew. Our leader's information network is very fast. Right now, we can receive news from all the major bases in the country. What do you guys count for? You guys made such a big commotion. How could we not know? The staff said with a slightly proud expression. "So that's how it is. Since that's the case, let's go in." Wang Jin nodded his head and got into the car. He gestured to the driver to go in. Initially, he was afraid that some of the people he brought with him might have been infected with the virus during the test at the entrance. Who would have thought that they would say that there was no need for a test here? However, Wang Jian was still a little worried in his heart. He was afraid that he might accidentally infect others with the virus. He thought that he should bring those who seemed to be unwell to the medical department for a thorough examination. At this moment, a figure suddenly descended from the sky. Wait a moment. A young girl with short hair appeared in front of Wang Jian and the others. The girl was dressed in clean black sportswear. It was February, and the weather was still very cold, but the girl only wore a single piece of sportswear. She didn't wear a thick coat either. The short-haired girl wore a pair of sunglasses, revealing half of her pale face and pale lips. As soon as the staff at the door saw her, they immediately ran out and stood beside her. At the same time, they pressed the door switch and closed the door first. Then, they carefully asked, "Excuse me, is there a problem with these people?" Elmar turned her gaze to the car in the middle and pointed at it. "There's someone in that car who is awakening his ability. Get him out of there first." Wang Jian and the others looked back blankly. The people in the car were all sick. He wouldn't have been surprised if they were infected with the virus. But this girl said that there was someone in there who had awakened his ability. That was a pleasant surprise. Really? Wang Jian looked at the car blankly before turning back. His face was full of joy as he asked Elmar for confirmation. He didn't care about what was going on with this strange girl. After all, after seeing the horde of zombies earlier, he was no longer as vigilant towards the zombies in this area. Elmar nodded her head. "My intuition can't be wrong. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get him out. His awakening doesn't look too good. If we're late, something bad might happen." Wang Jian immediately dragged Huang Tinga out and pushed him back. "Go, go, go. Hurry up and see what's going on over there." Huang Tinga immediately ran to the car in the middle. A group of people immediately searched the car in a hurry. He's been unconscious ever since he took the medicine that day. I don't know when his body temperature became so high. The person in charge of taking care of the car pointed at an unconscious man with his eyes closed. It was the man whom Wang Jian and the others had tried to save on the day when Li Honglin and the others had stolen their things. At that time, they were afraid that he wouldn't be able to make it. Who would have thought that he would still be alive after taking the medicine? Now, he had awakened his ability. "That's him. Carry him out." Elmar came over. She then continued, "His condition isn't good. His body's functions are almost non-existent. Hurry up and send him to Lin Hao. Get him to help." Elmar turned to the staff at the door and waved her hand. She wanted him to come over and take care of the awakened man. "Yes, understood." The staff immediately came over and found two people to help carry the awakened man out of the car. Wang Jian took a few steps back to put some distance between him and Elmarch. He looked at her curiously and asked, "Can you sense when someone awakens their ability?" Elmar turned to look at him. "Yes, what's wrong?" "Oh, it's nothing. But thank you." Wang Jian waved his hand. He looked up at the sky curiously. There wasn't any sun. Why did he need to wear sunglasses? "Let's go in." Elmar waved at Wang Jian. She could tell that Wang Jian was the leader of the group. "Oh, okay. We'll go in now." Wang Jian nodded. He turned around and called for everyone to drive into the base. Elmar raised her hand and pushed the sunglasses on her face. She turned around and jumped up to the top of the wall. At this time, in front of the group of zombies, female zombie number 5 was looking at Li Honglin and the others with a ferocious expression. She bared her fangs and roared at them. The group of zombies behind her had all come out. They were blocking the middle of the road, not letting anyone pass. What's wrong with these zombies? Why can they let Wang Jian and the others pass, but not us? Chunhao stared at the female zombie with a vigilant face. He was afraid that she would suddenly pounce on them. The people on the other side didn't dare to move because this was a level 5 female zombie. They were only level 3. Roar Dash, the female zombie, stood in the middle of the road. She didn't move. She just grinned and roared at them. Chapter 751. Just now I thought it was strange. Why are these zombies blocking here? Since we bypassed the previous zombie hordes, there was no trace of zombies on the way here. Or could it be that this new base is a fake? If Wang Jian and the others went in, they might not be able to come out. Lu Tong looked at the female zombie with a thoughtful expression on his face. His expression was calm as he thought about the situation before him. What do you mean? Li Honglin turned to look at him and asked. That's impossible. If it's fake, then who released the news? Why would anyone release news about a fake base? Chun Hao's eyes flashed as he continued. Besides, how can you be sure that it's fake? That's right, it's normal for there to be zombies guarding the perimeter of the base. Besides, we haven't even reached the walls yet. Li Honglin agreed with Chun Hao and turned to look at Lu Tong. Lu Tong looked at the zombie hordes in front of him with uncertainty in his heart. Why don't we wait and see if we can meet other humans and ask them about the situation before we go in? Or we can go in another direction. Why did these zombies let Wang Jian and the others pass, but not us? Chun Hao looked at the zombie hordes in confusion. These zombies were different from the ones they had encountered before. Before, the zombies would only need to smell them from afar to attack them in a frenzy. However, the zombies in front of him were strangely standing there quietly, not moving, not going crazy, and not pouncing on him. Only the level 5 female zombie had a fierce expression on her face. Her attitude towards Wang Jian and the others was obviously quite good. Even if she threw them one by one, she would just grab their clothes or kick them away. It was obvious that she avoided using her nails to touch them. Most importantly, her expression was very calm before. Unlike now, when she had a ferocious expression on her face, as if she would roar at them as soon as they got close. Because someone in your group has been infected by the virus. Didn't you guys realize it? At this time, a clear and elegant voice came from above. Li Honglin and the others raised their heads slightly and saw a young girl in black sportswear standing on a high-voltage electric pole next to the female zombie. The girl had short hair, but she was not afraid of the cold. She wore thin clothes and stood on a high vantage point, letting the cold wind blow on her. A pair of dark sunglasses covered the area above his nose. Infected with a virus? Impossible. We are not infected by the virus. Li Honglin was slightly taken aback by the sudden appearance of the girl. Then, he realized what the girl had said. He immediately retorted. If there was a virus infection, he would have killed the other party long ago, or pushed him out to fend for himself. There was no way he could stay in his own team. It turned out that Wang Jian's group was able to pass through because they were not infected by the virus. And they couldn't get through here? Was it because they were infected? Looks like you've been tricked. Elmar flashed and appeared next to female zombie number 5. She said to Li Honglin and the others, she won't let you in because there are virus carriers in your group. Unless we can separate this person, none of you will be able to enter. Li Honglin, Chun Hao, and Lu Tong turned around instinctively. Lu Tong only swept a glance behind him before turning back to Elmar and asking, why should we believe you? Elmar shrugged and said indifferently, it's up to you whether you believe me or not. It doesn't matter if you don't join our base. There are other bases you can join. Among the group of people on Li Honglin's side, there was one person who kept his head down. His head was covered by a hat that was attached to his clothes, covering his head and face. His hands were tightly hidden in his sleeves. Everyone's attention was attracted by Elmar and the zombies, so they didn't notice the state of this person. Chun Hao first swept his gaze over everyone on his side. After making sure that there was nothing out of the ordinary about them, he said, after confirming that there was nothing wrong with them, he moved his gaze to Li Honglin's group. Who is not feeling well? Come out yourself. Chun Hao shouted. If you want to go in, then go in one by one. We will find that person. There is no need to waste so much time. At this time, Elmer suddenly said, okay, then my people will go first. Chun Hao immediately agreed and waved his hand. It wasn't that he immediately believed Elmar, this little girl who looked like she hadn't even grown her hair yet. He just felt that since they had already come this far, there shouldn't be any mistakes. Also, he didn't think that this new base would use zombies as a detector. This was something new. As long as these zombies didn't attack, he had nothing to be afraid of. After saying that, he looked back at Li Honglin and Lu Tong, then waved his hand to signal his people to go first. Brothers, they won't go. Let's go first. When we get to the new base, we will find a job and have a place to live." He then looked at Lu Tong with a hidden meaning and laughed coldly in his heart. If he doesn't go in, then it's even better. No, I have to think of a way to stop him from going in. Chun Hao had other thoughts in his mind, but he still had to fake a smile and asked Lu Tong, "Lu Tong, I think this is the place. If you don't believe me, then there's nothing we can do. Why don't you wait outside? I will go in and find out the situation, then come out and tell you. What do you think?" Hearing this, Lu Tong's eyes lit up. He turned to look at Li Honglin and said, "That's a good idea. I think we can wait outside. Let Chun Hao go in and find out the situation, then they can make a decision after seeing the reaction of Chun Hao and his people." Also, he had something on Chun Hao, so he wasn't afraid that he wouldn't come out. "I don't mind." Li Honglin nodded and looked up at him. Lu Tong turned to look at Chun Hao with a pale smile on his handsome face. "Then don't forget what you said." After saying that, his eyes dimmed a little, then returned to normal with a faint smile. Female zombie number 5 looked at these people. She didn't know these people's names, so she glanced at Li Honglin's face. She shook her head in her heart. Rough looks, no temperament, and not tall enough. After giving him a score of 50, she immediately looked at Lu Tong. This body was too skinny, like a pork chop, and his face looked sick and unhealthy. Although his face was not bad, it wasn't good to look at this kind of face that could be blown away by the wind. For the sake of his face, she gave him a pass. Looking at Lu Hao, he was even uglier. His appearance was a bit fierce, his head was also quite big, and his body was burly. He was basically a muscle man. It was fine to be a muscle man, as long as he was handsome. The problem was that this man looked too fierce. Although he wasn't ugly, he just didn't look good. Judging from his aura, he was a bit better than the previous two. It was just that he didn't look as good as the weak chicken. 58 points. Female zombie number 5 couldn't pass the test of Chun Hao's looks. She failed. Chapter 752. Lu Tong felt female zombie 5's gaze on him. He didn't know why, but he felt like this female zombie was picking vegetables. If it suited his appetite, he would eat it, and if it didn't, he would throw it away. Thinking of this, Lu Tong's heart turned cold. When the female zombie's gaze swept over him, he quietly moved his body behind the others. Li Honglin and Lu Hao noticed this, but they didn't care. Elmar nodded to female zombie 5 and said, "Then we'll go one by one." The female zombie immediately turned around and roared at the group of zombies behind her. Roar! Following that, the group of zombies separated to form a 2-meter wide path. Chun Hao pushed someone out from the side. "You go first." Ah! 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 The person who was pushed out was an ordinary-looking man. He didn't look too old. He looked around 20 years old. After being pushed out, he looked back at Chun Hao with a blank face, as if he didn't expect to be pushed out. "What ah? Go over. Do you want to enter the new base?" Chun Hao said to him. The man immediately understood that he was thrown out to be a guinea pig. Although he was very unwilling, he had no choice but to submit to Chun Hao's pressure. He carefully walked over, and when he got close to the female zombie, his whole body stiffened. Roar dash, female zombie 5 impatiently roared at him, then waved her hand at him. She signaled him to go in quickly. On this side, the people from Hades King's base encountered a small interlude. On the other side, the prey that Lin Xiao was waiting for had appeared. The originally calm lake began to surge, and then a huge shadow appeared in the water. Lin Xiao and the others looked down from the surrounding trees and saw that the shadow was more than 10 meters long. The thick body in the middle was very huge. Looking at the huge shadow that gradually appeared in the water, for words appeared in everyone's heart. Prehistoric crocodile. He watched as a large piece of rough but hard skin emerged from the lake. The skin was covered with large pieces of rough scales. There was a row of sharp horns on the back. Following that, a huge crocodile body appeared, and a pair of cold and narrow eyes also appeared from the water. The killing intent in the eyes immediately spread out in all directions. 4 sturdy legs and huge claws pushed its huge body out of the water. Then it walked towards the shore step by step. Bang, bang. With each step, the ground shook. It had a ferocious crocodile's mouth and thick, long, and sharp teeth. Dragging a thick and powerful tail behind it, it slowly came ashore. Lin Xiao and the others looked at the huge, snapping turtle from afar. Its body was already as big as a truck, and its thick tail was at least 15 meters long. Its body length had already reached more than 30 meters. The giant crocodile crawled up to the shore step by step. It took it a full 30 to 40 seconds before it was completely out of the water. The giant crocodile, which had completely come ashore, spread out with a fierce and vicious aura. On the other side, Qiu Lily turned to look at Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao shook his head at her and raised his hand to make a gesture. He wanted to wait for the giant crocodile to reach the shore and move further away from the lake before he made his move. The giant crocodile seemed to be very slow in sensing the aura around it, or rather, it did not care. It walked up. Although it was huge, it didn't make much noise. Its footsteps were steady, but the ground would still tremble. Lin Xiao and the others quietly followed behind it. They didn't get too close, because even if they didn't get too close, they could still feel the wild aura of this guy. The giant crocodile walked forward with familiarity. Not long after, it arrived at an empty hill. It climbed to the top of the hill and lay down. Then it began to bask in the sun. A large part of the top of the hill had been flattened. It seemed that it was often pressed down by something heavy. Now that the giant crocodile lay down, it began to close its eyes and bask in the sun. It seemed that it often came here to lie down. Lin Xiao's figure flashed and appeared at the bottom of the hill. She slightly raised her head and looked at the giant crocodile that was only a dozen meters high. The aura emitted from the giant crocodile that looked like a prehistoric monster had reached the peak of level 6. Although it had not entered the level 7 stage, it was still much stronger than ordinary level 6. As expected of a ferocious beast, its lethality and defense were very strong. Lin Xiao stealthily walked toward the giant crocodile. She squatted on the grass and began to slowly release black gas. The black gas began to disperse along the cover of the grass and slid toward the top of the hill. Not long after, it moved around the giant crocodile's head and swayed around the crocodile's nose and eyes. Suddenly, in a flash, it completely disappeared into the crocodile's nose. Puff! The giant crocodile's head shook and a fierce breath came out of its nose as if it was sneezing. However, it did not spit out the black gas. At this moment, suddenly, the sound of wind blowing came from the top of the surrounding forest. The giant crocodile's eyes suddenly opened, and its sharp eyeballs turned. Then, a violent hurricane suddenly blew from all directions in the sky. The hurricane carried countless wind blades that slashed toward the giant crocodile. Puff, puff, puff. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The hurricane blew the surrounding vegetation down and bent the branches. When the wind blades cut through, the grass and leaves turned into debris and flew everywhere. Sand and stones flew everywhere. However, when these wind blades cut through the vegetation and cut the giant crocodile's body, they did not hurt it. Not even the scales were shaved off. Roar! The giant crocodile was shaken by the wind. Its huge tail swept back and forth, sweeping hundreds of kilograms of stones down. At this time, Lin Xiao immediately appeared. She flew backward and leaped onto a tree branch. With a wave of her hand, a black flame was thrown out. It pounced in the direction of the giant crocodile. The surrounding hurricane immediately sucked in her flames and began to circle around the giant crocodile as it shrank. Roar! When it saw the appearance of the black flame, the giant crocodile immediately became vigilant. It raised its head high and opened its mouth wide, revealing a mouthful of sharp teeth. Its head swayed from side to side. Its tail also swung left and right uneasily, slapping the ground. The flame began to spread to the giant crocodile's body. The giant crocodile immediately began to become agitated. It fiercely rushed down the hill with a wave of tremors. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Xiao's black flame began to touch its tail and then began to burn along its tail. Roar! When the battle began, on the other side, Wu Qingyue's eyes flashed slightly. He took the time to glance in this direction. Then, he continued to strike lightning at the giant tortoise shell. However, although the lightning struck the energy shield on the tortoise shell, it was unable to break it for a while. Moreover, the turtle began to run at a rapid speed, rushing in the direction of the lake. Even Xiao Liqing's Earth-type ability could not stop its barbaric charge. This was because the raised mud wall was directly smashed. Even if it wanted to dig a hole to bury it, this guy's speed and reaction were not slow at all. It could even make a sharp 90-degree turn in an instant. Chapter 753. The alligator snapping turtle realized that the humans attacking it were very powerful. It realized that its defense might not last long. Therefore, it turned around and ran. It ran in a barbaric and direct manner. It was fast and did not turn. Its thick and hard shell charged forward. Like a heavy bulldozer, it smashed away the rocks and trees that were blocking its way in front of it. This guy is going to run. Don't let it run into the water. Wu Qingyue's eyes flashed, and he immediately chased after it. However, this alligator snapping turtle was not only big and sturdy, but it was also very agile. His running speed was very fast. When he saw a slope, he would rush up, and when he saw a pit, he would run around it. It turned a blind eye to the abilities of Wu Qingyue and the others behind it. No matter what kind of abilities they were, it directly defended itself. Wu Qingyue's thunder attack landed on its back, but it was blocked by the energy shield. They attacked and chased all the way, and they had to stop the big turtle from running to the shore of West Lake. Therefore, after an hour, Wu Qingyue and the others on one side were chasing a big turtle, while Lin Xiao was chasing a prehistoric giant crocodile on the other side. If the two amphibious giants were in the past, they would definitely fight when they met. However, they did not fight today. They were happy to see the familiar figures. That's right, they both sensed each other's aura and rushed toward each other. Bang! After the alligator snapping turtle and the giant crocodile bumped their heads, they immediately formed a back-to-back position and faced both sides at the same time. The former enemies had now become companions. The few mutant beasts did not think too much. They just wanted to chase away these foreign invaders first. Lin Xiao and Wu Qingyue were more than 100 meters apart from each other. Between the two groups were two huge mutant beasts. For a moment, they all stopped moving. TSK, we actually bumped into each other. Lin Xiao raised her hand and covered her forehead with a pained expression. She clearly wanted to avoid this guy, but she did not expect to be brought to Wu Qingyue by chasing the giant crocodile. Although she had already sensed the aura of Wu Qingyue and the others chasing after the big turtle from afar, Lin Xiao did not intend to give up on the giant crocodile just because of Wu Qingyue. Therefore, Lin Xiao was already mentally prepared when the two sides met. But when he saw Wu Qingyue's smiling, handsome face, Lin Xiao couldn't help but feel a toothache. Yes, that's right. It was a toothache. Hey, there's a flower on that turtle's back. Qiu Lily landed beside Lin Xiao in a flash and stared at the beautiful purple flower on the back of the giant tortoise curiously. Twin mutant species? Lin Xiao sized up Wu Qingyue's prey and said, "There is an electric current flashing in the middle of that purple flower. It should be the lightning element that Wu Qingyue is looking for." The turtle's shell had a very thick energy shield. It seemed to be a defensive type. No wonder they haven't taken down these two mutants after such a long time. It seems that his lightning can't break their turtle shells. Compared to the alligator snapping turtle, which was fine, the giant crocodile was in a miserable state. The hard scales on its back and the ferocious protruding edges had traces of being corroded by something. There were also large and small cuts on its skin. Although it wasn't fatal, it looked a little horrible. However, the giant crocodile's aura didn't weaken. Instead, it became more violent. Are these two mutant beasts going to join forces? No, it's not two, it's three. On Wu Qingyue's side, Emoli stood on a big rock and looked at the two giant beasts from afar. She wasn't a combatant, so she could only watch from afar. These mutant beasts aren't stupid. They know to ask for help when they can't win. Xiao Liqing appeared beside her and nodded in agreement. Then he looked at her and said, "Don't get too close. It won't be good if you get accidentally hurt." Emily looked at him expressionlessly and said, I'm not that weak. Although she was a psychic, her physical strength wasn't bad either. It was more than enough for her to protect herself. Well, if only there was a way to break the turtle's energy shield. Our attacks didn't work. I didn't expect that even your psychic ability wouldn't work. Xiao Liqing sighed and said, looking at the other's prey, although it was also a huge monster, its attacks were still somewhat effective. Now that the two monsters were mixed together, both sides could only temporarily stop fighting. They couldn't just randomly attack without any discussion. Otherwise, who would be responsible if they killed it? It seems that your turtle's defense is very special. Haven't you found a way to break it? Lin Xiao brought Qiu Lili and the others closer. Wu Qingyue and the others also approached. That's right. It's immune to all attacks. Even psychic attacks can't penetrate its energy shield. Do you have any ideas? Wu Qingyue looked at Lin Xiao with a smile. His beautiful long and narrow eyes were slightly squinted into crescent moons. His beautiful lips curved into a perfect curve. If you guys don't have any ideas, what can we do? Lin Xiao looked at him indifferently. She continued, we won't attack your big turtle. We only want our crocodile. As if in protest of Lin Xiao's words, the alligator snapping turtle on the other side opened up its energy shield. Then, it enveloped the 20-meter-long crocodile. It seemed to be telling Lin Xiao that it was impossible to attack one of them separately. If they wanted to attack, they had to attack all three of them together. Wu Qingyue smiled and pointed at the three monsters. This seems a little difficult. Lin Xiao turned his head and looked. Qiu Lili appeared beside Lin Xiao and said, it seems that if we want to catch our prey, we have to help them open the energy shield first. While Lin Xiao and Wu Qingyue were still discussing, the crocodile and the big turtle had already changed their direction. The two giant monsters lined up side by side. Two huge, ferocious heads stared fiercely at them with two pairs of fierce eyes. Roar! The alligator snapping turtle raised its front legs agitatedly and kept stomping left and right on the ground. His head was slightly raised as he stared at everyone's position. It looked like it was ready to rush over and fight. The crocodile next to it was the same. It kept swinging its huge tail and slapping the ground behind it. The crocodile opened its mouth slightly. The two rows of saw teeth on the top and bottom were as thick as a baby's arm. They shone with a cold light, showing off its terrifying bite force. Roar! Then the two giant monsters changed from defense to offense. They roared and raised their front legs, stomping on the ground, and rushed toward Wu Qingyue and the others. Oh, they're attacking. Qiu Lili saw the situation and immediately swung the two ponytails in her hands behind her. Her eyes were bright as she stared at the two giant monsters that were rushing over with a violent momentum. Before they met, she didn't want to put the alligator snapping turtle into the space to trap and kill it. Moreover, the alligator kept running and was very strong. If it didn't stop, she wouldn't be able to put it in. So, she thought that it would be fine to kill it outside. As long as it didn't run back into the lake, it should be fine. Can you put them into the space? This turtle is level 7, and there are 2 of them. Can you suppress them? Wu Qingyue looked at her with some doubt. It wasn't that he didn't believe in Lin Xiao's ability. If it was one, he believed that she could suppress it. But there were 2 of them. The combined energy of 2 such high-level mutated beasts was comparable to a level 8 or 9 mutated beast. He was afraid that her space would explode. Let's take them one by one, Lin Xiao said indifferently. Her figure flashed and rushed towards the center of the lightning. Wu Qingyue stretched out his hand from behind her and beckoned all the lightning bolts towards him. He didn't let any more lightning fall there. At this time, because they were covered by the black fire, the collision of the 2 caused them to separate slightly. Lin Xiao flashed and appeared on the back of the giant alligator. She stepped on the back of the alligator and squatted down. She grabbed the alligator's snapping turtle's back and sent it into the space. Bang dash, a loud sound came from the forest in the space. At the same time, the ground shook. The mushroom spirit and Wang Shi, who were running in circles without feeling tired, were suddenly shocked by the giant alligator that fell from the sky in front of them. All of them stopped moving at the same time. Lin Xiao flashed, and the giant alligator on her body disappeared. Her figure flashed again, and she flew toward the giant tortoise. The big turtle abruptly discovered that its companion's aura had suddenly disappeared. Its aura faltered, and its body also came to a halt. It turned its head to the side. Then, before it could see where its companion went, it felt that its energy shield was invaded. Lin Xiao looked at her hand strangely as it passed through the energy shield of the big turtle and touched the shell of the big turtle. Huh! While Lin Xiao was surprised, he quickly sent the big turtle into the space. Not to mention that these two giants would cause pressure to her space. There was no pressure at all. Besides these two, there was still a group of them in her space. Not to mention the number of zombies of different levels. Just the mushroom spirit, Dahe, and Wong were all level 6. If the energy could burst the space, it would have exploded. At least Lin Xiao didn't feel anything. She could even suppress a level 8 paranormal, and these two mutated beasts were only level 7 and not level 7. It was nothing. Lin Xiao felt that her space was not limited by these mutant-level energy. As long as she didn't die, the space should not explode one day. Chapter 755. The four in the forest in Lin Xiao's space were confused, and then there was another loud noise. Bang! The mushroom spirit and the alligator snapping turtle, who were staring at each other, were shocked back to their senses by the sound of the big turtle falling. The mushroom spirit's reaction was the fastest. She turned around and ran away, disappearing in a flash. The big crocodile in front was staring at the mushroom spirit and the big black snake in front of it. It turned its head to look at the big turtle's movement. It found that its partner had also fallen into this strange place. The alligator snapping turtle was a little dizzy after being thrown from a high place, but it quickly came to its senses. It looked around and found that it was a strange place. It looked around anxiously, looking left and right. It found that there was no energy in the air that it could control. The alligator snapping turtle couldn't use its energy shield. It panicked and wanted to turn a few rounds on the spot, but it found that it couldn't turn. In its posture, because its body was too big, it was stuck by the surrounding trees. And it was stuck on its side. On its side, Roar, the big crocodile, roared at it. Although the big crocodile was thinner, it was also stuck at this time. It twisted its body violently, struggled with its four legs, and swung its thick and long big tail. But it still couldn't get its body out of the trees. Woof! Along looked at the two strange creatures strangely and didn't care about the mushroom spirit anymore, because it had been attracted by the two fresh Big Macs. Perhaps Big Black had sensed that the aura of these two giants was stronger than itself, so it had curled up into a pitch-black lump. It straightened its neck and raised its head, staring at the two dangerous existences with its long, narrow, and cold snake-like eyes. It didn't know why its master brought these two in. Was it going to catch them to be its partners? Dahe turned its head to look in the direction where the mushroom spirit disappeared and thought silently. There were a lot of new partners coming in today. Oh, it's stuck? That's good. It saved me a lot of trouble. Lin Xiao appeared at this time and smiled when he saw the situation in front of him. It couldn't be helped. The distance between each tree in this forest wasn't very wide. The size of these two crocodiles was a bit too big. Even the slender crocodiles were stuck in their fat stomachs. Even though they were struggling with their four legs, it was of no use. On the other side, the big tortoise was even more miserable. Looking at the alligator snapping turtle that was stuck in the middle of the tree, Lin Xiao's smile widened as he looked at the alligator snapping turtle that was stuck in the middle of the tree. Crackle! The thunderflower on the alligator snapping turtle's back swayed, and tiny electric currents flickered in the middle of the flower. It seemed like it wanted to summon lightning, but it seemed to be broken. Flashing back and forth, nothing appeared in the sky. Lin Xiao leaped onto the side of the snapping turtle's shell, which was erected high up, and squatted down to examine the thunder flower on its back. The crocodile on the other side was also struggling, but after struggling for a while, it began to open its mouth wide. The moment these mutant beasts opened their mouths, it seemed like they were about to release their abilities. When Lin Xiao saw this, he immediately jumped away from the tortoise. Landing on a tree branch behind the crocodile, he stretched out his hand and grabbed at the crocodile. Puff! Hua 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 hua. Then, the big crocodile's mouth spewed out a large stream of water. The water was very rapid, and the force was very strong. It immediately pushed He and Ao Wang away. Only then did the two of them react. Some climbed up the tree, while the others were washed away by the water. The He climbed up the tree next to it, and Wang, who didn't know how to climb trees, was washed away. Oh, Lin Xiao frowned and slightly clenched her fist. Then, the water in the crocodile's mouth immediately became smaller. This crocodile turned out to be of the water attribute, and it actually didn't come out before. While trying her best to suppress the big crocodile, she turned her head to look at the alligator snapping turtle that was still struggling. It would have been fine if she hadn't looked, but when she did, she discovered that the position of the beautiful purple flower on the back of the alligator snapping turtle had shifted. Pitter-patter-boom. The purple flower was originally in the middle of the turtle's shell, but now, because of the alligator snapping turtle's posture, the flower slowly climbed to the high place where Lin Xiao had been standing, which was the side of the shell where the alligator snapping turtle was standing. A small bolt of lightning still appeared, but it was aimed randomly at the surroundings and bombarded randomly. After the first bolt, the second one began to appear. Pitter patter 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 patter. Although the lightning was as thin as a thumb, it would explode if it hit the surrounding trees or the ground. If it hit the ground, it would create a small hole, but if it hit the trees, it would just be a puff of green smoke, and nothing would happen. The big crocodile was suppressed by Lin Xiao, and the water that spewed out of its mouth slowly disappeared. Only a large puddle in front of them and Ao Wang, who was still flopping in the water in some corner, were left. Lin Xiao turned her head and raised her other hand in the direction of the thunder flower. Her 5 fingers slightly clenched and began to press down. Soon, the commotion caused by the thunder flower gradually died down, and the lightning disappeared. Big Black, go up and bite that flower. Lin Xiao suddenly shouted to Big Black, who was coiled up on another tree. Dahe's eyes flashed coldly, and then it slid out of the branch and stretched its long head to another tree. Just like that, he slid from the trees one by one until he reached one of the trees with the alligator snapping turtle stuck in it. Then he slid down. It opened its mouth and pounced on the purple flower. At this time, Wu Qingyue was retreating with his men. Although the 3 mutated beasts had been subdued by Lin Xiao, they were not as strong as Lin Xiao. However, the flood from afar did not stop. It was still rushing towards them. If they continued to stay here, even if they were not washed away by the flood, the trees under their feet would be washed away by the flood. However, their speed was not slow. The people that Wu Qingyue brought in were all level 5 or 6 arcanists, with the lowest being level 4. His physical movements were fast and nimble. On Lin Xiao's side, even Shun Yuzhen, who had the highest level, was able to escape with a swishing sound. It was not a problem at all. Fortunately, the flood was still far away, and the front wave did not have the push from the back wave. After Lin Xiao put the 2 giants into a space and cut off the connection, the follow-up force of the flood disappeared. Therefore, although the momentum in front had not stopped, it was not as fast as before. When the flood reached the place where Lin Xiao had put the 3 mutant beasts, the water force had decreased a lot. Meanwhile, Wu Qingyue and the others had quickly retreated from the forest and rushed to the top of another mountain. They did not leave. Instead, they quietly waited on the top of the mountain for Lin Xiao to appear. Qiu Lily and the others did not leave either. They stayed separately from Wu Qingyue and the others. What do you guys think? Turtle meat or crocodile meat is better? Qiu Lily sat on a rock and played with the tail of her hair. She was bored and asked a question. Chapter 756. In the space, Lin Xiao suppressed the crocodile and the Thunderflower's superpower attacks and let Dahe deal with the lowest level flower. Dahe climbed to the top of the thunder flower and pounced on the flower that could no longer send out thunder strikes. It opened its mouth and bit the flower with a pair of sharp, curved teeth. Puff, with a soft sound, the beautiful purple flower was bitten into pieces by Dahe. Dahe raised its head slightly and was about to swallow the flower directly. "Wait a minute, don't swallow it." Lin Xiao quickly stopped it. Dahe stopped raising its head. Then it lowered its head slightly with the bitten flower corpse in its mouth and looked at Lin Xiao in confusion. "Just bite it to death. Don't eat it," Lin Xiao said to it. Dahe opened its mouth. Patter, the flower corpse, which had lost its vitality, fell to the ground. "Come here and bite it." Lin Xiao pointed to the crocodile under her hand and waved to Dahe. Dahe immediately slipped down from the tree and turned into a black shadow, flashing toward the crocodile. The big crocodile immediately sensed the crisis and turned its head. It opened its mouth and wanted to bite the big black snake that rushed toward it. Of course, the big black snake would not directly attack the crocodile's big mouth. Instead, it turned its head and slid to the side. It went directly to the back of the crocodile and attacked it from behind. Seeing that the big crocodile was temporarily suppressed, Lin Xiao stopped. She flashed to the corpse of the flower and narrowed her eyes to look outside. Well, if she went out now, she would be drowned by the water. So Lin Xiao gave up going out temporarily. She would first kill the two big crocodiles and then go out. The water outside would be shallower. The stuck big crocodile was badly bullied by Dahe. However, its skin was thick and its belly was not exposed. Dahe couldn't kill it at the moment, so it could only go around its back and bite its butt. The big tortoise standing on its side saw that the purple flower was dead, but it didn't react. After struggling for a few times, it found that it couldn't get rid of the purple flower, so it shrank its head and feet into the shell. Lin Xiao glanced at the tortoise and thought that she would ask Wu Qingyue for the big tortoise later. She would give him the energy core and take the tortoise's body. While Lin Xiao was waiting for the water to subside, Wu Qingyue and the others were waiting for Lin Xiao to come out. On the other side, the Black Dragon base was in a miserable state. Gao Haoyan left? He actually gave up on this place? In the conference hall of the underground base, Du Quinxing looked at the huge screen in front of the conference hall with a dark expression. The screen was divided into more than 10 smaller screens, each with a different image. It reflected the smoke and ruins of a large battlefield. Countless buildings had been destroyed, trees had been blown up, and there was black smoke everywhere. There was not a single trace of a human in the image. There were only countless zombies walking around. In addition to Du Quinxing, there were other managers of the base in the conference room. They just drove the helicopter away from here. Leader Gao Haoyan also left in the helicopter. A man in a military uniform stood by the side of the screen and pointed at one of the small screens with a gloomy expression. Du Quinxing coldly stared at the small screen. After a long silence, he lowered his voice and said, "Who else wants to leave? You can leave now. From now on, this underground base will be sealed. It will be at least a month before we can open it." The reason he said at least was because the food stored underground was only enough for this many people to eat for a month. After a month, if the zombies did not retreat, then they would have to go out and face the endless number of zombies again. It's just a zombie emperor, Gao Haoyun, and Wu Qingyue should be enough to deal with it, Xikong Chun said expressionlessly. The others looked at each other. A zombie emperor needed 3 of their strongest adepts to deal with. Although they felt like they were making a mountain out of a molehill, this was the only way they could be confident. The other level 2 kings with our current weapons can't kill them. Although he couldn't kill them, he could still stop them. There's no need to worry about a zombie wave. Han Yijie, one of the directors in charge of the base's safety, spoke up. Since you're not in a hurry to leave, the ones who should be in a hurry should be the people from China. I won't be accompanying you. You can go ahead. After she finished speaking, she stood up and walked out of the living room with her long legs clattering in her military boots. Mo Yin, who left with Gao Haoyun, went through this revenge hunt. The purple light in his eyes flashed with a hint of violence, and his aura began to become unstable. Originally, he didn't want to kill everyone in Black Dragon's base. The zombie wave was just to cover their tracks and lure Gao Haoyan out. Gao Haoyan was hiding very well, and he couldn't find him. That was why he thought of the zombie wave. He didn't think that when Gao Haoyan came out, he would get on a helicopter and fly away. As for the rest of the survivors in the base, who knew where they were hiding, Mo Yin didn't care about them. He just wanted Gao Haoyan's life. However, after the zombie wave, Mo Yan's heart became more and more restless. She couldn't help but want to lose her temper and hit him. She was in a bad mood. So when Gao Haoyan got on the helicopter and ran away, Mo Yan's anger rose, and he became even more restless. However, he still suppressed his anger and chased after Gao Haoyan's helicopter. No matter how far he went, he wouldn't let Gao Haoyan go. Roar Dash, after running for more than 300 kilometers per hour for 2 days, he finally reached the vicinity of China's base. Mo Yin stopped and immediately waved his hand. Kacha kacha, boom 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 boom, boom dash. His body was surrounded by countless lightning bolts, causing smoke and dust to fly everywhere. Suppressing the restlessness in his heart, Mo Yin randomly exploded for a while before gradually calming down. After he calmed down for more than 10 minutes, a dozen figures flashed behind him. Mo Yin found a clean place to sit down and waved for the female zombie to come over. The level 5 female zombie gently walked to Mo Yan's side, raised her hand and touched his shoulder, and activated her ability. A faint white light came out from the gap between the female zombie's hand, but more of it seeped into Mo Yan's body. The floating veins on Mo Yan's face gradually calmed down after the white light from the female zombie. At this time, the veins on Mo Yan's face didn't only cover half of his face, they were getting bigger and bigger, and even the other side of his handsome face was covered. Right now, his entire face was covered with these strange veins. Every time he went berserk, the purple veins on his face would seem to come alive and become strange and scary. At this time, Mo Yin didn't look like that evil handsome face from before, but looked like a demon. As the female zombie touched him for a long time, the veins on Mo Yan's face would gradually shrink back. 2 hours later, Mo Yan's incomparably handsome face finally appeared. The veins on his face had all retreated below the left side of his neck. His expression was cold. This was his usual expression. He calmly raised his hand and waved at the female zombie. The female zombie immediately retracted her ability and quietly retreated to the side. This was also the reason why Mo Yin had to agree to Lin Xiao's retreat. He couldn't live without this female zombie. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.